Happy Tuesday. Hope you're all doing well. So much news. It's so crazy. There's so much news going on right now.
There is.
Yes.
Yes. A
I
lot of
guess
news.
first I want to say, do you hear that telephone ringing?
What is it? What
Because
is
I
someone
called
called?
it
Oh, you did?
on
What'd
the
you call?
tariffs. On the
Okay.
tariffs. I said, if you recall on Sunday, I said, listen, you're gonna have a situation where everyone's gonna put their hands on their face, like Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin, and say, the world economy's ending. Oh my God. Or there's just gonna be some minor concession from Mexico and Canada, and Trump's gonna say, oh, mission accomplished, everybody. Tariffs are gone. I completed my goal. And everyone's gonna say, oh, what a savior, the hero of America. And it's all just gonna not be a big deal whatsoever. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, if you say what happened was just a minor concession, obviously. So
Right,
a lot of
right,
people, I think, would be like, oh my God, they're on their knees. Major concession. Canada's the 51st state now.
right.
Mexico's completely under our thumb. I thought it was interesting that Anna Kasparian had brought this up on the Young Turks that Mexico had already sent 15,000 troops to the border that were already there. So like, are they sending 10,000 new troops or are they withdrawing 5,000 troops? Like, what is the deal there?
My well, first of all, bring up a tariff picture or something, just so people know what we're talking about. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, well, so it okay. The conversation is about with this how many people are sent to the border because apparently in 2019 Mexico sent 15,000 troops to the border, and then when Trump was president, and then when Biden was president in 2021 they sent 10,000, and then now they're agreeing to send another 10,000. And so I actually haven't really seen reporting on what that means. Does that mean that there's going to be now 35,000 people at the border? Or I'm assuming that those surges to the border were temporary. So like they sent 15,000, they left, then they sent 10,000, they left, and now they're going to send 10,000 back as this kind of temporary surge. And supposedly the last time they did this temporary surge in 2021, it doubled the arrest rate of, people trying to sneak in the country illegally. So, it's not nothing, but the conversation is really obviously a lot of these things seem like they could have been done without the threat of a massive tariff, right? That'd be the argument.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case, though.
Well,
I
we
mean,
don't
the
know,
tariffs
but
did really make them jump, though.
yes, but I think that okay, so I think everyone's thinking about this tariff conversation completely wrong, and because the it's broken down into the classic two movie political narrative thing, where you basically have the people on the right say, "Oh my God, Canada and Mexico totally caved," and the people on the left saying, "No, Donald Trump totally caved." Right? And
Right.
so the people on the left say, "Well, because Mexico's already sent these people to the border before, it's not a big deal for them. They made some other agreements that Mexico is already supposedly in the works dealing, like going to try to do those anyway." Same thing with Canada, supposedly. Canada, Trump had worked out some deal in Canada last year in December, supposedly, that they were going to spend $1.3 billion on, advanced border security and some other issues on the border. And so they're just implementing the thing they already said they were going to do last year. And so the left is trying to frame it like, aha, Trump caved. He just threw it out there. He saw that there's going to be a massive economic backlash, so he gave up. And then the right is saying, no, no, no. He's, the big man who smacked these countries in line. I think they're both wrong. I think they're
Hmm.
both completely wrong. I don't think anyone caved whatsoever on either side. And I don't think it's really about that at all. Like obviously I think Trump's smart enough to know that if he does this and he can spin it as a big win for himself optically. Like that's really obvious. So he's aware of that. But I don't think it's about that. I think this is primarily about visibility. There's a big problem with the government that people have, which is most people don't really see what the government does. They feel like when they pay tax money, it goes into like a pit and then it just disappears. You don't really perceive how it helps you, right? We're the fish that's swimming in the ocean, and we've all been swimming in the ocean for so long. We don't really, we don't have like a sense of what the water is because we're swimming in it. As we walk around in America, we don't really get a sense of, what the government does for us most of the time because we exist in a society, that's, well, depending on where you live in the country, it's not crumbling, not falling apart. Maybe in some areas of the country it is falling apart. So, and I think Trump realizes this, and I do think this is a very good move politically. Whether it's true or not is different, but it's a very good move politically because it's making it very visible what he, as the head of the government, is doing. It's saying, like, Trump could have totally had Mexico and Canada, probably agree to all these terms privately. Like the way a normal president would do is that they'd have some meeting with Canada, have some meeting with Mexico, they'd have a phone call, then they come back and say, we made some agreement to do XYZ, right? And that would, make a little bit of news, but it wouldn't make big news. Not that many people would talk about it. The political junkies would talk about it, but the average public wouldn't talk about it. But if Trump comes out and he says, I'm slamming, 25% tariffs on our neighbors, it's going to, this could possibly destroy the economy. It's going to be the biggest thing ever, but we got to do it because of the immigrants and the drugs and the fentanyl. Like he makes this huge spectacle, this huge show of it. And everyone goes, oh my God, this is going to destroy the economy. This is insane. This is crazy. And then, the next day it's like, I worked out a deal. I worked out a total deal. We can pause the tariffs. Canada and Mexico is going to do all these great things for us. It like really puts a spotlight on the activity that he's doing. And so it's like a really smart idea from a political showmanship on a political visibility scale. People don't feel like people see what Donald Trump is doing and they say, oh, he's doing things, right? A lot of people, I think it can be very difficult for people to figure out whether the government is doing something good or bad. They just want to feel like the government's doing something. A lot of people, I think, voted for Trump because they're like, okay, Biden was president for 4 years. The economy is having all these problems. There's all these other problems in the country. I just want to see Trump do things. I want to see him do something.
Yeah, he also linked it to fentanyl, which was a huge campaign promise. So
Right.
how do you actually do anything about fentanyl that is going to be in the public eye like that? So linking it to tariffs was a good move, definitely. So
yeah,
but this is like Trump is a master at this. So
right.
Yeah, from all the executive orders to look, he's keeping campaign promises. I think Democratic voters are probably super jealous. Like, what do they get when their guy is elected?
Yeah, that's the thing.
They get like a gay black woman as press secretary.
Well, I'm sure there are things that, Biden did here's the thing that we always heard from, during the election was like, oh, well, Biden did the Inflation Reduction Act. He did XYZ. And people are kind of like, well, like, what does that mean? Right.
Like the Inflation Reduction Act is actually a climate bill, but they didn't even sell it as a climate bill.
I know. But putting that aside for a second. Okay. I'm just saying normally the government comes out and they says we passed some giant bill and people it's hard for people to like wrap their brains around what exactly that means. They say, oh, well, we provided $1 billion towards, climate change. We provided $1 billion towards, reducing inflation or the economy or whatever.
We're doing something.
Right. It's hard for people to like put that into perspective.
Think of your example, the Inflation Reduction Act. Wasn't his campaign promise that we would do something about climate change? Sure. Why didn't they mark it as a climate change bill?
Right.
Well, because they knew they couldn't get it passed.
Yes. Right. But so it's like, it's harder for people to kind of grab their mind onto something that's like a very large, vague, we're fighting inflation, we're fighting, climate change, as opposed to, I'm stopping trade until you stop sending us immigrants and fentanyl. They decided to, to cave, right?
Do you think they would have done better in the election? Kamala Harris would have done better if they did market the Inflation Reduction Act as a climate change bill?
I don't think that would have made a difference. No.
Well, it would have had the perception that they did something about climate change, which the far left people who abandoned them over the Palestinian thing might have voted for them. They might have actually showed up. And marketing it as a Inflation Reduction Act when inflation was still through the roof. It just appeared to be a complete failure. At least if it was marketed as a climate change bill, they could have hit it. They could, oh my God,
right.
The carbon emissions are so far down. Holy shit.
It's kind of a mixed bag because you're right. Like it'd be interesting if once inflation didn't go down or didn't, I mean, it went down, but didn't return to normal numbers or pre-pandemic numbers. Maybe they could have flip-flopped and be like, oh, it's, it was a climate bill, right? To try to get the win any way they can. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe that would have pulled some people on the further left who didn't want to vote for them for Palestine and all this other stuff. but the same token, I feel like that would have the reverse effect that would repel, swing voters and center voters because they're going to be like, because the Republicans would frame it like, oh, we have all this inflation problems in our country right now. The
And they're
price
worried
of
about
eggs and
climate
food is
change. Yeah.
right, is super high, and you just spent $1 billion increasing inflation because you're spending money on climate change.
Yeah. We can theorize about the political fallout of it, but the argument that you're making is still true. Like
Yeah.
politicians very much they run on making certain policy prescriptions and they need to make a big show of achieving those prescriptions and keeping their campaign
Or the
promises.
perception of achieving them. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the game. That's the game that we're playing here. So, and it
Right.
seems like Trump is a master at this, obviously. Republicans, I mean, they might be better. They might just be following in Trump's lead. And Democrats just seem fucking abysmal at this.
Yes. Well, I think everyone was abysmal at this until except for Trump. So maybe the Republicans will learn to pick up the slack here, right? To do this or not. Maybe the
Right.
Democrats will too. It's unclear.
Yes.
I think the way to look at it is like compare the Canada, like Mexico situation to the Venezuela situation, right? Where the Venezuela wouldn't take the deportees back. And then, Trump lays out that huge, threat, and then they do actually cave. And I think the way to look at it is if like the difference is with Canada and Mexico, basically like Trump is just like, I'm throwing these giant tariffs, on you before really asking for anything specifically. Like I'm just throwing this out here and then I'm going to work
He
it out.
did ask for some specifically. He asked for fentanyl to
No,
be
I'm saying
stopped.
no. But he asked at the same time that they threw out the tariffs. He didn't go to Canada, Mexico, say, hey, let's do a deal. And they said no. And they said, okay, I'm tariffing you. Right.
Right.
He
Oh,
said,
yeah. Okay. I
yeah,
gotcha.
he said like, boom, like
Tariff
it's all at the same
first.
time. Right. With Venezuela, it was very different. Venezuela did something. And then in response to Venezuela doing something we didn't like, boom, we throw out like all these, we're going to annihilate you, sort of accusations. Right. So
JD
to me,
Vance
that's why it seems
tweeted
more
that they
real.
already asked nicely many, many times about the fentanyl stuff. So it was pertinent for them to throw the tariff out there immediately.
Well, I'm skeptical, but whatever. He's going to
Of
say what he's
course.
going to say what he's going to say. But
Well, look, fentanyl is part of JD Vance's brand, obviously.
right.
Yeah. Because he's a fentanyl dealer. No, because he wrote
Well,
this
how else are you
book.
going to get people to want to, support the Curtis Yarvin monarchy?
Let me
right?
just set this straight. JD Vance wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy about the drugs basically taking over Appalachia and destroying the small towns, one of which he grew up in. And I think his mom was addicted to drugs as well.
Right.
So that's why he wants to make a big show of dealing with the fentanyl crisis. And look, I think like overdoses is one of the biggest. I think it kills more people in car accidents, which is kind of fucking insane now.
Right.
You can't
It is
look.
pretty
You
crazy.
can't even do drugs anymore in this country, right? Because
Back
they're
in my day,
probably-
you could do a bump of coke without worrying about dying from fentanyl.
well, look, you could buy drugs on the street from complete strangers and have a rest assured that they were probably the correct type of drugs. Now you have to worry. Oh my God, I'm going to OD on fentanyl.
I know.
I would
Crazy.
not. I would not touch drugs in this current environment. So
Right.
hopefully Trump can clean this up. We can get back to the 80s.
So we could start having drugs again.
When everyone was doing cocaine all the time, it was all safe,
Oh,
safe
yeah.
and effective.
Safe in a big finger quotes kind of way.
Oh yeah,
I want Trump to come out here on TV and be like, we need to bring back safe cocaine,
yeah. Oh, that would be so cool. But look,
safe meth.
he can't go
Right.
that far.
No, okay. But so so in terms of the tariff thing, the pros, I guess, are Trump gets to kind of run it as a big win for him. There is some movement. Obviously, Mexico and Canada are going to help on the border issues, which is good. The potential cons of it is that there was some movement. I don't know if this has been the work, so maybe it's just coincidence, but there was some big movement around the same time yesterday where all the tariff stuff was going on, where the EU has been making very large overtures or been involved with trade negotiation agreements with Mexico. You do have to be a little careful, which they've come to some agreement with. You do have to be a little careful because if Trump is, kind of using these sledgehammer tariffs as an optic victory, because it is, he did say it's not, they're not over. He says it's like a pause, right? So, this, the looming threat still exists. Is it is, could put pressure on Mexico and Canada to be like, well, let's try to, have stronger trade negotiations with the EU or other countries where we're not afraid of like getting slapped around every, 10 seconds.
Yeah, that could happen. I do. He's sort of also showing China, this is going to be his tactic. So,
Right. Well, there are 10% trade tariffs on China, which I
right.
don't believe have been lifted yet. It was also based on fentanyl. China at first said that like we've already done everything, it's not our problem, and then they sort of softened their stance the next day, like, well, maybe we'll be willing to do something. So,
Oh my God, they're an authoritarian state. They could round up all. They're making money off it.
oh, of
Obviously,
course,
it's like another
right?
business for them. They're like, holy shit, we make billions. How do you think we
Yeah,
get all those dollars?
I'm sure they make so much money off of it, and also they, like to destabilize the country. They don't give a fuck,
Yeah,
or they
yeah,
probably enjoy it.
yes, yeah,
There was something. Now there was something that, because I asked you about this, which was I saw a lot of people were like, they were very happy that in reaction to the tariffs, the peso and the Canadian dollar had gone down. I mean, it gone down like very slightly, but it went down, right? It's funny because people like zoomed in on like the 1 day drop, so it looks giant, even though it was like a fraction, like the
right.
cent, but whatever.
Probably
It
pop
went
right back up.
right, like it went down a little bit, and they were all celebrating, saying, "Oh, America like owned." And then I saw people on the left saying, "You don't know what you're talking about. Donald Trump actually wants the US dollar to get weaker, has been pushing for the US dollar to get weaker. So this actually goes against his own policy that he wants implemented."
Right. Yes.
So what's up with that? Why does Trump want the US dollar to be weaker?
It makes the imports from other countries more expensive in the United States, and it makes our exports cheaper in other nations. So it gives us an advantage in trade.
Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes
We
sense.
want their products to be more expensive. The whole purpose of putting a tariff on somebody is to make their product more expensive in the US, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously. So, but this is the thing that they're always accusing China of doing. They're saying China is creating an unfair export advantage through currency manipulation. It makes our products super expensive in China and their products really cheap, and vice versa. So we've been accusing China of doing this forever. So I guess Trump just wants to. You read the articles on this. I'm just telling you my understanding of the economics. So
Mm-hmm. Okay.
is
Okay.
I mean, it would not surprise me if China is doing currency manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how it really affects anyone inside the countries. Just buy if you're buying American, and I don't know how the weaker dollar really affects you as an American if you're just buying goods and services that are made in America. That's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, I think, is to get more stuff made in America, less stuff being imported. So,
Right.
yeah, if we can make, I don't know, avocados in the United States, why are we importing them? All the
Well, I guess that's
nations
a.
around the world, they want to export to the United States because
Mm-hmm.
they've taken out huge economic loans, right, in dollars to basically
Right.
do some sort of build some road or bridge or whatever, right? So they owe all this money. They're basically mortgaged to the hilt. So they want to sell avocados to Americans because they want to get those American dollars and pay off the fucking bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what our situation is, right? Did we borrow a bunch of Chinese yuan and build a bridge with it? I don't think so, right? We're not in
Right.
that situation. So we have a major advantage. And if we can sort of wall ourselves off from the world, we could create a good economic advantage over these other nations. So the
Hmm.
the the argument for globalism has always been kind of this: we're helping other people pull themselves out of poverty. I think it's more likely that we're using them as pawns in a huge game of chess with other strategic players like Russia and China. I don't think Americans really care about the economic development of a lot of these small countries.
Well, the argument of we're helping other countries was always like that was the secondary argument that
Well,
was
it's a
thrown
sales
out
pitch to the American
to
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the sales pitch to like satiate the left. It was like, listen, we're helping these poor countries because the primary argument was always just, don't you want to buy your shit cheaper?
Hmm.
Like that was the argument. It was, do you want to have a bunch of goods, in the country that are more affordable for everyone? That
Well, if
was
it
the
means
primary
nobody
argument.
has a job and they like they need these cheap goods because everyone's fucking dirt poor, no, I don't want those cheap goods.
Right. But then at the same token, it's not like there's a dearth of jobs in America.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I
there's
mean, I
plenty of
think
jobs going around for people to get in America.
well, I think the problem is a lot of the jobs are higher value added jobs. Look, and there
Right.
actually is a shortage of jobs for people who
Hmm.
have college educations, right? We're cranking out far more college educated people than there's actually jobs to fill roles that need a college
Well, it
education.
depends what
So,
that's the problem is. It depends what degree you get.
right. And
Yeah.
I don't know about the lower unskilled labor as they call it. Like if
Hmm.
unskilled labor is constantly being filled by illegal immigrants, then there is no jobs for people who have no skills, which is not good. Well, I don't know. Look, I haven't dived into the numbers here, so
Hmm.
I just know the economics, the supply and demand economics. It's relatively simple. So,
Right. Right. Okay. Well, anything else about the tariffs before we move on?
no, we can move on.
Okay. Oh, I guess
I
the
don't.
last thing about tariffs was interesting was yeah, because
Are they
a
actually
lot
happening? Is anything happening with the tariffs? Nobody's
not to
been
Mexico and
tariffed.
Chan not to
There's
Mexico and Canada.
10%. So, look, I do think Trump threw out like a 25% tariff as a signal to China that, look, we'll go higher, right?
Right.
10%. We're starting nice with you, China. We're playing nice. Here's the opening salvo, right?
Well, I
But
think
we're
the
happy to go
reason
up.
that he threw out the 10% to China and he threw 20%, 25% out to Canada and Mexico is that he knew because he's obviously the one who can decide what agreement to go with. He knew that the 25% to Canada and Mexico was just like, that they were just going to make an agreement with them the next day anyway. So they're not
And it
real
would
numbers.
capture headlines, right? Obviously,
Right.
everyone's going to write huge headlines about a 25% tariff
Right. But he also thought that the China tariffs could actually be in place, would actually be in place for some period of time. So
for
that's
a
why I think
long
it was
period of time.
10%. So, but yeah, because it's interesting because a lot of the conversation about tariffs that we were having, other people were having in the past was all like, we need to bring jobs back to America. That's why we're in favor of tariffing, China. I mean, we're in favor of China, but also, Canada and Mexico. And yet that didn't really seem to be even remotely part of the conversation at all. It was
Right.
about immigration and drugs. It had nothing to do with bringing jobs back to America from these countries.
Imports, I mean, they really are like the same as the illegal immigration. Well, obviously it's not illegal, but
Hmm.
you're basically having foreign labor produce your products that Americans could produce the product, right?
Right.
So there's two ways to do it. You have illegal immigrants come in and completely undercut prices,
Hmm.
basically like wage slaves. They don't have
Right.
they're not starting a life here, so they are at the whims of the employers. Or you can have the Chinese oppress their people, make them basically wage slaves over there, and you don't have to deal with it. And you don't have to deal with the pollution, right? Obviously, a
Right.
lot of these factories produce pollution and
Right.
whatnot. That's the two different ways to do it. And
Well,
I like Trump very much has this attitude that the job is the important thing. And a lot of people have the attitude that the stuff is the important thing. And I don't, I'm not sure I know which of those is the truth, right? Which is the more
right.
important thing.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the same thing with government spending where you go, oh my God, government spending is always bad because it'll cause inflation. It's like, well, wait a minute. If the government spends $1 and it produces theoretically like $5 worth of, stuff, then it doesn't create inflation because it's creating more
Yes.
stuff,
Yeah,
right? But if
exactly.
the government spends $1 and only creates 50%, I mean 50 cents of things, then that does create inflation. And it's kind of the same thing with having these imports and jobs being shipped overseas and all this other stuff. It's like Yeah, if we ship all our jobs to China, Canada, and Mexico, and so you have 10% of the country that can't find jobs now, and they're just sitting around collecting welfare checks, then obviously it's like, okay, if you get everything cheaper, is that worth it? Because you've just, cut off 10% of the country from working. Probably not. But if you ship a bunch of jobs to Canada, Mexico, and China, and those people that work those jobs can work other jobs of comparable income, then it's actually a net benefit because then they're still working. They're still making the same levels of money they'd be
If the
making,
Americans still have jobs,
right? If they
yes,
still have jobs,
totally.
right? And then we're also, being able to buy things cheaper. So actually, they're sort of getting a pay raise because of that. So and you're right. I don't know if anyone knows the exact answer to that question because obviously it's a very complicated question to figure all that out.
Yeah, and it's just collecting that kind of data is difficult, right?
Difficult. Yeah. Right.
I saw Shu in the chat. What's up, Shu?
Hey, Shu.
Shu said hello.
Okay. So now this USAID story is like a real it's a real head turner. There's a lot to look into with the USAID stuff. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of it. It would probably take forever to really do like a deep dive on all the USAID stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna do
Well,
the best
obviously, they're like
I
coming
can.
out with a bunch of. I'm in favor of Elon Musk ferreting out waste, fraud, and abuse.
Right.
Like, obviously, none of us want to see that kind money being spent on that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same time, I think Elon Musk has a really, I mean, I'm not, he doesn't really understand macroeconomics in a way. That's a little disturbing. So,
Yeah, there was a Twitter space, and I guess I'll lead into the USA. There's a Twitter space that was about the USAID cuts that I was listening to, and it was him, it was Joni Erst, it was Vivek, and he said this comment, and I don't know what he meant by it. And I sent it to you because I don't know, maybe it makes sense to you, where Elon said that when the US government borrows money, that they're competing with private citizens trying to borrow money, and that increases inflation. And I don't know what he meant by that.
right. And I explained that that is not the case at all.
Right.
So, a lot of people, they think that we still live in a world where there's fractional reserve banking, like there is money, a money supply that's out there that the government controls, and then banks multiply that money supply by 10 times by keeping only 10% of it in their vault and loaning the rest out. That's not how it works anymore. Now it's banks are more like a franchise where they go to, like, somebody comes to them and says, I want to start a business. I want to buy a home, right? I'm going to borrow money from you. So they write up a contract that says, we're going to loan you this much money. You're going to pay it back with interest over this period of time. And that creates an asset because you're actually promising, I'm going to do this, right? My business is going to be successful. I'm going to make enough money to pay back the loan and create jobs and do all of this great stuff. So they say, great, we'll just create the money out of thin air and give it to you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you pay it back, that money is basically taken out of the money supply. So the money supply expands and contracts by how much private enterprise borrows, right?
Right.
Government spending is also part of the money supply. Obviously, the deficit everyone talks about. People don't keep as many tabs on this borrowing and paying back because they perceive, well, if somebody is going to borrow money, obviously they're going to create enough value to make it worthwhile, right? There's some sort of process that keeps an eye on this. So people are less fixated on that portion of the
Well, they also
economy.
don't think that private lending or borrowing is creating money in the first place.
Yeah, because they on the old system. Yeah,
Right.
because
Right.
they believe in the old system. So the idea that this is like people are competing for a small fixed pile of money. I mean, obviously that would bid the price up of borrowing money if there was a fixed pie, but that's not how it works. There is no fixed pie. They'll create as much money as they want, as they can create, because
Mm.
it's just understood that that's going to create economic activity, grow the economy. Good things are going to happen, right?
Right.
The amount of people that default on loans is very small by comparison to the amount of economic activity this creates. So it's really a better system, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, like managing the money supply is a difficult task because as the economy grows, you think if I have a factory with 10 people, I need a certain amount of money for payroll, right? That money has to exist in the economy for me to do payroll, right?
Hmm.
Well, if you move up you 10 times the factory, right now I have 100 employees. Well, if you're still using the same number of dollars, obviously you have to expand the money supply to keep everyone at the same kind of wage. So
Right.
that's why the money supply grows and contracts.
Well, and also, I mean, my understanding is it's completely wrong to conceptualize the government borrowing money. The government doesn't really like the government doesn't go to a bank and be like, "Excuse me, bank, we don't have any money. We're the US government. Can we borrow some from you?" And the bank says, "Oh, sure." That's not really what happens. What happens is the government creates money and then banks essentially or other institutions or private individuals will buy a bond essentially that represents, the debt of the created money.
The Treasury authorizes spending through legislation. The Federal Reserve is the Treasury's bank and also the bank of all other banks, right? Your bank at Bank of America, their bank is the Federal Reserve, right? It's the bank of banks.
Right.
So they keep track of how much money uh, Bank of America has in reserve. They keep track of how much, like when the Treasury authorizes some kind of spending bill, they just say to the Federal Reserve, "You work it out, right?
Right.
If you have to create the money, create it." So they
No, well,
basically
I
do.
guess what I'm trying to say is like the way that Elon framed it, and I think the way that people think about it, which is incorrect, is they think like imagine that Chase Bank has $1 billion in a vault. And they're like, okay, if the US government goes to Chase and it borrows $500 million, that's taking away $500 million that private citizens could borrow from Chase Bank. And that's not even remotely close to what happens at all.
For the reason that I said, right?
Right.
The asset is you borrowing the money. Most people don't think of it that way. They think of the money as the asset. The asset is you signing on the dotted line and saying, "I'm going to pay this money back."
Hmm.
You're basically creating something of value, right?
Right.
You're saying you own me for $1 million or whatever, right? That Elon Musk had to take out a bunch of loans on Twitter. I think he bought it for like 44 billion and had to finance a lot of that money, right?
Right.
So when Elon Musk signs on the dotted line that I owe Chase Bank $15 billion, that's like that promise to pay Chase Bank back is the asset.
Is it possible that he meant what he meant, but he said it in a wrongly autistic way? Because he's Elon. What he meant was if the government is borrowing slash creating money, so the government's creating a bunch of treasury bonds, that is, it creates an investment vehicle for citizens and banks to that, in that investment vehicle of like the bank buying treasury bonds is competing with the bank investing in other private investments. Is that what maybe he meant that?
So creating the treasury bonds,
Like
which
if a
is
bank has like $100 million and like we want to invest this in something, they could either buy a treasury bond from the US government, or they could, put in the stock market or invest in some private businesses or whatever. Right. And
mhm.
so maybe he was saying in a very autistic way, like, well, when the government creates slash borrows money, they're creating a treasury bond, which then, creates competition for what the bank is going to be investing its money in.
Well, it could create competition with corporations who also want to sell bonds at some interest rate.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, that could be a possibility.
Okay. Maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, maybe that's what he meant. I would think that the interest rate you can get off of a government bond, treasury bond, is going to be significantly less than a corporation or some
But
other
but you
investment
said he
vehicle.
said it bids up interest rates,
That's what he said. Yeah.
right? Which interest rates are set by the Federal Reserve. Like everything comes from the Federal Reserve setting the interest rate.
I'm just trying to
They
twist myself in a pretzel to try to make some sense of this comment.
So the Fed chairs meet and they say, is inflation bad? How's the economy, right? And they set interest rates to basically manipulate people into taking out more loans, like I said, which expands the money supply, right?
Hmm.
Or not taking out loans, right? If if interest rates are 0%, what's going to happen to the money supply? Like
Gonna
people are
go
going to
up.
take out loans like crazy,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Boom.
exactly.
It's going to grow and grow and grow and grow, right? If interest rates are 5%, what's going to happen? People are going to stop taking out loans, right?
Right.
So and then when Bank of America offers you a mortgage, they base their interest rate on how much they can borrow money from the Federal Reserve at, right? They're like, we're
Hmm.
going to have to pay 5%. So in order to make a profit on this loan, we got to up our interest rates to like 7%, right? This is why your mortgage interest rate is higher than the treasury bill. So but everything starts with that treasury bill because that's like how much you can go to the government and borrow money for.
Hmm.
So, but those interest rates are set by like a meeting and people vote. That's not
Hmm.
a free market. And then not only that, like there is the appearance of a free market because through Fed operations, they're going to make the interest rate that level through supply and demand. So
Right.
they're like, if demand, uh, so they got kind of got to mess with the supply and demand to get the interest rate at a certain level.
Hmm. Okay. Well, so going to the USAID, because obviously that's what the big story is, the USAID thing. So if you get, we have this organization USAID, which essentially is a centralized way that the federal government decide, like, tracks all the foreign aid and other aid that they're giving out every year in the budget.
Right.
And
Yeah. They already
now,
found a bunch of crazy shit.
right, right. And so essentially what happens is Congress, they say, hey, we write in the budget that we want to give, I don't know, we want to give South Africa, $10 million in Ebola cures or whatever, right? And then they say, okay, USAID, you go manage that, right? You go figure out how to do that, essentially. You keep track of that. And so throughout the years, the decades and decades, all the times that we talk about sort of managing foreign aid, it all goes, well, over the years, USAID was created in like the 60s and has been changed, many times. But the organization that now exists, the USAID, was in charge of basically managing all the various aid projects that the Congress had been voting on for the last, 60, 70 years throughout the, American history.
Right. Do
Um,
you know the background on this? Because I think the organization was established through an executive order, and then
yes,
Congress came in and did it like the right way,
yes.
legally. So I'm
That
not
is what
sure.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kennedy created it in the 60s through executive order. The reason it was created was because essentially you'd have a problem where you'd have the State Department and, maybe the CIA and other government organizations would kind of be tripping over each other because like someone would want to give aid to some country and it was like, well, who's supposed to be doing this? Maybe multiple organizations were trying to do it at the same time. It was kind of like a big mess. They said, okay, fuck this. Like, let's just have one organization kind of manage all these things so we're not tripping over each other. And that's, Kennedy kind of established it with executive order, but then Congress voted it into existence officially. And so that's what exists now.
Okay.
Um, so a lot of people are talking about it in terms of the money. I don't think it's really about the money, Lebowski. I don't think it's actually about the money. Because if you look at it, it's every year USAID gets about like $40 billion. That's like the budget, which is like, people are saying it's less than 1% of the budget. And if you compare it to Trump's tax cut that he wants, Trump's tax cut that he wants would cost $4.6 trillion over 10 years. So that would be, if you were to do it over a 10-year period, if you somehow removed all of USAID, which they're not even going to do, by the way, that would only cover 11% of just the tax cut, right? It seems like if you're really trying to find a bunch of money, there's a lot of other places you would start before you go to USAID. I don't really think it's about the money. I think it's about the perception of what you're talking about. It's the perception of political power. Because right now, I see so many people on Twitter who Elon is very tapped into are making a bunch of claims that USAID is essentially just a bunch of projects that the left is using to promote wokeness essentially throughout the world and throughout America. And so that's why Elon is kind of focused on USAID, is because he believes all this stuff. Whether it's true or not is a different question, but I think that's really the operating thing. It's trying to take, it's kind of like a straight dictator's handbook. When you go in power, you try to take away the ability for your political opponents to divvy up the resources to their team, essentially.
Yes.
Um, so it's just, let me think, how to think about this, how to talk about this. Okay. So when they do a breakdown of USAID and how the money is doled out, it says 52% of the money is given to private companies that are running programs. 34% are public international organizations are administering it. The US government is responsible for about 10% of the programs, and foreign governments are responsible for about 4% of the programs for this money. And apparently, over the last 10 years, the largest private nonprofit to get money is the Catholic Relief Service, which has got $4.6 billion over a 10-year period of time. So I don't know if the Catholic Relief Service sounds like some woke agenda. I don't know. It doesn't sound like that
Well,
necessarily
they're
to
the
me.
ones that are doing all the immigration stuff. They're the ones that are doing all the illegal immigration stuff. Like they're
The
literally
Catholic
going,
Relief Services?
yeah, everyone constantly talks about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're helping the refugees,
Hmm.
right? The
And
Catholic
yeah,
Church has outlets all over South America, which is predominantly Catholic,
right, right,
right?
right. But there's a difference between saying we're helping refugees and we're helping people sneak into America.
Is there?
Yeah, of course.
What's the difference?
Because if there's refugees in a country that's in South America, or there's refugees that are in, like like most refugees are in other African countries, right? They're in their surrounding countries before they go to like Europe or America or something.
Okay.
So anyway, the thing that I want to look into, because and it is too deep, is this act kind of the accusation that they kind of talking about, that like all this stuff is just for the left, which it's hard to conceptualize, to go through all these things, because everything that's in there is things that people voted on in the budget over the years. And it seems unlikely that the Republicans are just basically going to ignore, like, they're just like, listen, we're going to let the Democrats do whatever they want. We don't want our own thing. Because that's not really how any of this works. The way that this works, as you know, as we know from the Dictator's Handbook, is that people are going to they're going to get a coalition of people that's going to help them be voted into power. So let's say you have a Democrat or Republican is going to get a bunch of Catholic voters to vote them into power. And then once they're in power, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to, you want money for refugees, or you want money for Ebola in Africa. So I'm going to put in the budget, that the Catholic Relief Services get, XYZ money, right? It's essentially a lot of these programs are, I think, twofold. I think they're payoffs to domestic allies for helping them win elections. And then also it's a soft power situation to try to get foreign governments to do what you want.
Exactly.
Right. And so since that's kind of what it is, it seems highly unlikely that it's just for somehow magically, it's only the Democrats that are utilizing USAID this way. I think we have kind of a Twitter file situation where, when Elon takes over Twitter files, he kind of, Twitter, he has the Twitter files, they kind of look through it. And, you have like Matt Taibbi, and it's like, oh, he's like, look at all these things, like, look at all these things Biden was doing, all the Democrats are doing. And someone asked him, like, well, did you look at, how many requests the Trump administration, made into getting things removed, taken down? He's like, no. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a little interesting. And then when someone does, they start to find like, oh, there was a bunch of actual times that the Trump administration, took things down. It's just that wasn't what the focus was on. So, because it seems to me that USAID is what I said. It's both the Democrats and Republicans using this to essentially as a slush fund to pay off people that have helped them get into power, and also a way to try to soft power foreign countries into doing things that they want. And the thing that's annoying to me about the whole USAID
So just
conversation.
just to be clear, so the it's some person in the United States, it's their pet project, and it's just a payoff by whatever administration uses that person to get into power for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be my
Okay. That
yeah,
makes
that'd be
perfect
my
sense.
sense. Yeah.
Yes.
That it's basically people using it for the two main reasons are soft power and foreign governments, and also to pay off pet projects for people that got elected.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But you know, like this is what people talk about when they talk about like pork. It's like
Of
someone,
course. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
some senator or some House representative wins. They won because they were able to get a coalition of coal miners. So they try to include something that's going to help coal miners, or they won because they were able to get a bunch of, evangelical Christians to come out and vote for them. So they try to do some policy or some money to the church or something, right? You have to pay off the people essentially that helped you win your election. And so
Yes.
USAID, to me, seems like that's basically, what a lot of what was going on in USAID. Now, some of it might have been, I do think some of it was good. There definitely were a lot of programs that were helping, cure Ebola, cure prevent AIDS in like, African countries and all these other things. So definitely were programs that were helping people. And but the thing that annoys me about the conversation is I feel like no one is really talking about what the real thing is that America is buying with these programs. Like they look at the curing of AIDS, we're helping people with AIDS in Africa program, right? Which is good on its face, obviously. AIDS is bad. I'm glad people are, being cured of AIDS or Ebola or whatever. That's all, wonderful. But I'm a little I'm a little cynical. I don't think that
A
America,
little cynical. What are you talking
just a
about?
little tiny bit, okay?
You're like
I
way
don't
cynical.
I don't think America is
Cynical
like, listen,
is your brand.
yeah, I know. I don't think America is like, I want to, help dying people in Africa out of the goodness of our hearts. We're doing it for some reason that benefits us. We're like, we're going to give, you know, these governments money to do this, maybe, because we want to exert soft power, because we want them to help us with some trade negotiation. We want them to help us fight terrorists in some other region. We want them to allow us to put military bases in their country that help us, exert our military power in other parts of the world. We're giving them money to do something for our purposes. We're not just doing it because we're so, huggy nice that we just want to cure AIDS and cancer in other countries. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
the thing that's annoying to me about the conversation is I don't really hear anyone discussing what the thing is that we're buying. They're only talking about like the front, like, oh, we're curing AIDS, we're curing Ebola, we're building wells, we're making people woke in, South Sudan or whatever, right? No one's saying like, well, what are we actually getting from this? What's the real thing we're getting from this? So I feel like it's almost like you walk into a business and they're like, okay, we need you to go through our books and to cut a bunch of money from the budget. And they hand you the budget and you just see the dollar amounts, $1 million, $5 million, but they don't actually tell you what the money is doing. And so you're like kind of blindly just cutting things because you don't know what the point of the money is.
You'd hope that someone behind the scenes is saying, "Look, this money is buying us a vote on the UN Security Council so that we can stop Russia from doing this." Right?
You would hope, but that does not seem to be the case at all.
Yeah. Look, and obviously, the real reason would be horrifying to American voters.
Right,
Like,
right.
yes, we're doing this to bribe the elites of a certain nation who are brutal dictators and subjugating all the people under them so that we can get a vote on the Security Council, right? Like, Americans
Well,
are going to be like, what the fuck?
it's kind of ironic because I feel like in the past, Americans were in a place where we would not, as a country, want to know. Like we want to believe, oh, we're just spending money to cure AIDS and Ebola out of the goodness of our heart. But I
Mhm.
feel like America's in a darker place now, and I feel like if they actually said, hey, we're curing AIDS and Ebola because we're getting XYZ, I think it actually people would be more maybe in favor of keeping those programs if they knew whatever the actual cynical reason is that we're doing this stuff.
If the stereotype of Republicans is true, then
Or even Democrats. I just think everyone because right now there's a big push is just like, oh, which is understandable. I understand the thought process. It's like there's people in America that are suffering right now, right? You have people that their homes got washed
they're
away by floods or burned down in fires. Like, so why are we spending money helping people in other countries when we should be spending money in our own citizens? And I understand that makes perfect sense, right? There's a complete logical sense to that. There's a complete moral sense to that. I understand 100% like
Yeah.
the thought process there. So that's why I'm saying, well, maybe we need to actually have a serious adult conversation where we say, well,
Oh no.
the
The
this is what
serious adult conversation always scares me when
it does. But you say this is why, this is really the real reason why we're spending money overseas. This is what we're getting out of doing it. This is why we're spending the money over there, as opposed to, giving money to people to rebuild their homes in floods or whatever, right?
look, the purpose of the cover story is to make it more palatable, right? Like if
Yes.
people are not even interested in the cover story, what makes you think they're going to be interested when the real thing, the thing that shows how unpalatable the policy really is, comes to light?
Because what
Like
if
they're
it's
going to
like,
want it even less.
well, wait, it will depends what it is. Like if it turns out that we're giving, $10 million to some African country to combat AIDS, and the real reason that we're doing it is because essentially we're helping, we're paying off the government to stop fentanyl from coming into the country, right?
Well, that would be the real story then.
That's what I'm saying. Well, people
Yeah.
would be in favor of that. They say, oh, what's good? They're,
Yeah.
the government's cracking down. Now you could say like maybe 30% of that money is going into the president and his allies' pockets because it's a corrupt government, but 70% is going towards, fighting the drug trade or something, right?
Well, my question would be, why isn't that the real, why isn't that the cover story then? The real story should be the cover story if it's that good, if it's
Well, I
politically
guess that's a good
viable.
point. Yeah, I don't know, right? I don't
Like
know
the
what
whole
the, I'll just
point of the
hypothetical.
cover story is
Sure.
because the real story is something you want to keep a secret.
It's probably more like, we want them to stomp down on some rebel faction, which is spreading, jihadist ideas throughout the region, which we think hurts us in some other more complicated way,
Yeah,
down the road.
I think that's true.
But you agree, like, it would be better if we actually knew what was going on here. And I don't think Elon does know because, number one, I don't believe Elon or any of the people that are working for him, everyone's talking about how like he has this like group of like young adults who are barely not teenagers that are like making all these decisions. None of these people, to my understanding, have any sort of security clearance. At least that's what, people are worried about, saying they don't have any security clearance, they haven't done anything. So obviously they're not having some kind of secret conversations, where the State Department would says, here's why we're really doing it, and this is why you should keep those programs being funded. They're just kind of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because it's keeping a campaign promise. They're like, we're going to get rid of all this pork.
right.
And as long as it looks ridiculous, it's good for them
Right.
to put that out there.
Because, when I was listening to Joni Ernst, she's the Republican senator of Iowa, who, she talked when she was on the Twitter space, she was saying a lot of stuff. I've never really heard her talk. So I didn't have like an opinion of her really before this, but she was saying a lot of things that made perfect sense to me, where she was claiming at least that her and other senators have tried to get transparency from US aid to like be able to see where all the money is going into what purposes. And if that's a completely legitimate ask. Obviously, if Congress is controlling the budget of US aid, Congress should have full transparency in terms of seeing where that money goes. It's 100% makes sense, completely. And if that's not allowed, they need to completely change the system to make it so that everything, all this information is completely transparent to Congress. So when she's saying, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. And I'm sure there's lots of pork and lots of fat and lots of things that could and probably should be cut from USAID. It seems like this is what I think is going to happen. Well, first of all, this is all going to undergo a legal challenge because it seems like the president does not have the legal authority to just shut down an entire organization that was created by Congress. He doesn't have that legal authority to even do that.
Unless it was done by executive order, then he could totally cut it down.
No.
Unfortunately for him, they came in the 90s and made it legit.
Oh, right. Yeah. If it had been created through executive order and stayed that way, yes, but it hadn't. It was actually voted on by Congress. And so Congress has the ability, has the quote power of the purse. Congress creates the budget, they allocate the money. The president has some discretion on withholding aid and kind of moving money around, but president doesn't really have the authority to just be like, no, I'm shutting down this organization that was created by Congress. It's not within the purview of the president. But what I think is going to actually happen and Marco Rubio's already kind of signaled away from this because he's already said that there's an exception for life-saving services, though it's unclear what that means exactly. But
That's
he's
good.
also
That's politically advantageous.
right. But he's
They're
also,
like, we're
here's an
not
interesting,
killing anyone.
yeah, he doesn't want to say that because that's what happens is when it gets shut down, everyone's gonna point to like the you're denying
Yeah,
AIDS
totally.
medicine to dying people, right?
Yeah.
But another interesting thing is like apparently Marco Rubio said that that money going to Costa Rica will continue to go to Costa Rica because apparently U.S. aid money was going to help stop drug traffickers and illegal immigrants. And Marco Rubio was saying that they were doing that exact thing, and so they're going to continue money going to that country. And so this
Right.
is why, to me, like the whole just sort of blanket, like we're just going to cut everything, we're going to destroy the entire organization, cut everything, seems kind of stupid because like, well, I mean, we're basically going to shoot ourselves in the foot for something that's less than 1% of the budget.
Are they cutting everything? Is that where we're at now?
Well, that was well, okay. We were at them saying that they were going to do a complete 90-day freeze and then destroy the organization, essentially. And then that seems to have been walked back because it's not really legal, I guess, that Trump or the president has the power to do that. So I think we're kind of in a limbo state right now where no one really knows exactly how it's all going to work.
But
Um,
Marco Rubio's in charge of the organization. They put
well,
him
he's in
as like acting commander or something like that.
well, he's the Secretary of State. So I think this is what's going to happen. This is my prediction here. I think Democrats and Republicans have been using U.S. aid as a soft power mechanism on the world, and B, as a slush fund for their own pet projects to help, buy off voters. And so what's going to happen is I do think USAID will eventually get torn apart and repurposed under the Secretary of State's department. And the Republicans will keep the programs that they think are advantageous to their soft power and their slush fund usages, and they'll try to throw out anything that the Democrats want. I think that's essentially what's going to happen.
Okay. Rubio says he's acting director of USAID.
Right, because he's the Secretary of State, so they're trying to roll it
Yes.
under him. Yeah,
Well, yeah. I'm just assuming there was an acting. There was a director,
there
but that
was.
guy's gone or whatever. So
Yes, yes.
I think of more than one person resigned, which just screams like, "Oh shit, they found us out! Run!"
Well, it's like there's a situation where they either fire you, ask for your resignation, or they say you need to fire everyone under you, and they say no, and then they resign. Well, no,
Oh,
what
I
happened? The reason
gotcha.
they
That
resigned
makes sense.
was because they had a bunch of DOGE staff come in and basically, oh no, that was a Treasury, right? They want access to the Treasury, and they didn't want to give them access to it, so they resigned. I guess that was not USAID, but
Cool.
I guess there's another issue, which is are the Republicans going to care in Congress that this is the president massively overstepping his constitutional authority, or are they not? Because A, it's Trump, and B, Congress right now, I think, has the completely wrong incentive structure. I think right now Congress is incentivized to not do anything because it's safer. And I think we need to figure out how to restructure Congress so that they're actually incentivized to want to pass bills and things again.
They want to go to the parties and have the acolytes and have their name in the paper and have senator before their name or congressman before their name. That's all they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny to me because this is like such a meme on the right, but I think it's completely incorrect that these people want to get into power so that they can lord over you. That what? They want to get into power so that they can have higher status. They want to basically fly under the radar as much as possible. They don't want to get voted off the island.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's
So,
true.
yeah. The only
Uh,
time they want to have power over you is if they want to own you for their other side.
the
Like as in owning the libs or owning the
Right.
conservatives.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what they want to do. They want to lord their power over, yes, the other team, and they want to
The opposition, yes.
right. They want to get high fives and be deferential to their team. Yes, completely. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, he put out that PEPFAR. This is PEPFAR was one of the ones that people were pointing to. This was the AIDS, preventing AIDS, in a bunch of different countries around the world. He says PEPFAR is the epitome of soft power. It is a Republican initiative. It is a pro-life, pro-American, the most popular U.S. program in Africa. There's even a waiver acknowledging this. Yet I'm told the drugs are still being withheld at clinics in Africa. This must be reversed immediately. So he's really pushing for the soft power of making sure that we can get this, AIDS medication programs back on in Africa. And this is what I'm talking about, is like soft power is very important. We don't want to have to just basically have to use our military to get other countries to do what we want instead of our military to do what we want. This is where soft power comes in. We basically bribe countries into doing things. And that's what I want the people to have the conversation about, is like, what is the benefit? What are we gaining? What does the soft power gain specifically from Africa or whatever these countries are that we're giving AIDS funds to? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. I doubt we're ever going to get that kind of detail, but well, I guess
Right.
maybe someone
Right.
will do some actual journalism and we'll figure it out.
It's funny. I was listening to Sam
Skeptical.
Cedar talk about this. He was screeching because he said the media was not crazy enough about any of the stuff Trump's doing, and I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, yeah, I've been working on the comics, so I haven't
Right.
been like poring over the media. What is the media's response to all this stuff?
It's so weird. There's like this new I it really feels like there's talking points, and there's a conspiracy where like everyone gets the talking points. I think it's just sort of one person hears it and then they all kind of use it because it's effective. There's like this talking point from online left wing pundits where they all have been saying like the media is not fighting Trump, the Democrats aren't fighting Trump, they've all given up. You need to watch our program. We're going to tell you how to fight Trump, right? And it seems like so self-serving because of that. And I'm like, because I was watching so many like
That's
mainstream
hilarious.
media, videos about the USA thing, and like, yeah, like if you go on MSNBC, they're going to say, "Oh my God, the country's ending." But if you watch some of the other ones, they're going to say that they think it's bad, but they're not like screaming at the camera the way Sam Cedar, or Kyle Kalinske, or Tim Pool will scream at the camera because it's like a normal news, broadcast. But they're saying they think it's bad, and they're saying why they think it's bad. And so it's like a completely dishonest framing to be like, oh, well, they're just letting it happen. No one's caring, whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, it's interesting when I was listening to the Joni Ernst, Elon Musk thing. So Elon has it's very interesting. There's like this meme that was going around. I'm sure you heard of it, Adam, where they said that there was $50 million worth of condoms going to Gaza.
Yeah, it's up to 100 million now.
Oh, it's up to, okay. It increased to $100
Well, I
million.
listened to the
right?
Trump press conference where
Yeah,
he said
you're right. He said
100
100
million.
million.
And everyone's like, "Oh
doubled
my
it.
God,
Right.
he's lying again."
Right. And it's weird because I was like, okay, that seems, first of all, that's one of those things that when you hear it, you should know it's automatically not true. Because it's just like how many condoms would that be to go to the one place, right?
You can't automatically know it's not true because of the pork angle, right? Somebody owns a condom factory and they're buying condoms that they never intend to use, but it's like a big win.
Yeah, but why would they send them all to Gaza? Why wouldn't they send them to the whole country, right? The whole world?
Because that's the thing. That's the plan.
Right. Well,
so there's just going to be like a mountain of condoms
it should
over
be,
there. And the guy's going to have a mountain of fucking dollars in his bank account.
Well, you would think if we sent $100 million of condoms to Gaza, there'd be some video or picture of some starving Gazan people in a burnt out building that Israel bombed, but there's like a giant mountain of condoms.
Look,
and they're like, send us food, America, not condoms.
If we could get that deal, we'd be sending comic books over there. Be like $100 million in comic books. Nobody's like,
I love it. Right. So, but anyway, whenever anyone's ever looked into this, there's been zero proof that this is true. What it seems to be is one of these like mutant statistics where essentially there was like 50 or $60 million given to like all countries that was about reproductive health. Some amount of that would include condoms. And so somehow that gets twisted around into $100 million of just condoms going to Gaza.
Right.
And it was funny because, well, first of all, like if this is true, then Trump or Elon or whoever should just provide proof that it's true, which no one has ever done. But then even in that X space with Joni Ernst, who's in favor of dramatically changing U.S. aid, removing it, whatever, Elon brings up the $50 million for Gaza condoms, and even Joni Ernst is like, she laughs, and she does try to provide a very gentle pushback. It's interesting, where she's like, "Well, I don't know if that's exactly the number, right?" She's trying to provide some kind of gentle pushback, and Elon is like, "No, no, 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 no. That's," he says very specifically, that is the line item. That there is a specific line item somewhere in the budget that gives $50 million specifically to Gaza for condoms. And it's weird because, like, why wouldn't he just produce that receipt? Like, that'd be the perfect receipt, the picture, right, of like the $50 million in condoms to Gaza. So I'm skeptical of this. If even Joni Ernst is skeptical of this, I think it, makes the whole thing seem even more suspect.
Right. Look, I don't know where. I've heard a lot of people talking about the different stuff, so I don't know where this list came from. Someone obviously compiled a list that the 50 million for condoms is on, so but you want the actual receipt from the thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, people have just been saying it. They're not saying like, here's I've seen a lot of so someone sent a picture of the stream title,
Mm-hmm.
and the way it cuts off on YouTube is it says Trump news, tariffs, DOGE, Elon economics, our comic is shit. Like our comic is shit. But no, I saw people have
Doesn't it
been,
say shipping? Is the
yeah, but like
title
the way it
incorrect?
cuts off on like people's phones, it says
Oh, okay.
SHI dot dot dot. So I just thought it's funny.
Yeah.
But no, people have been posting like supposedly line items for organizations. I haven't seen anyone post a line item that shows the 50 million condoms specifically. That's just something people are just saying.
Yeah, look, I've seen the list of all the insane shit, like for a play on transgenderism in Sudan. I
No, but
don't
when you say the
know.
list, you mean like someone says this is what it is. It's not like here is a document that shows what the money is going to.
It is a document
Oh, okay. You have seen the
because
document.
I've seen
Okay, that's
the
what I'm
press
asking.
secretary hold it up and wave it
Okay.
around as she's reading the document, right? So someone has compiled a document. I don't know if they have screenshots from the thing that they're making the document from or what. But
Oh no, that the
yeah,
document that she was holding up was for 2 years of contraception. That I did see that document. That was 2 years of contraception to all countries everywhere. That
right.
wasn't just, and it was not just condoms, it was all forms of contraception.
I mean,
I have seen that document.
I don't think people, this is not like a huge thing that people are going to be voting on. They're going to be like, oh my God, they got the fucking number, the dollar amount on the condoms in Gaza wrong. I'm holding the Republicans accountable.
Well, you're right in terms of people aren't going to vote on. I just think it's weird. Again, it to me, it breeds not confidence in Elon if he's telling senators that that's the specific line item number that justifies what he's doing, and it's not even remotely true.
Right. Yeah.
It's like just way off. It's like, well, like where's he getting his information from? I thought he's the guy. He's supposed to be the one doing this. What is he
Yeah.
talking
But I
about?
mean, look, I don't know. I think it's like like a minor thing. So, but I
Well,
get it. You know, maybe it's 2,500 for condoms.
if that's the example, the big example that Elon is using and the Trump administration is using to like publicly say like this is why we have to get rid of it, and it's not true. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
would like for them to get an example that's accurate.
Most people, when they think of Elon Musk,
Mhm.
they think of the rocket coming down and being caught by the chopsticks.
So it's like a dick
So
shape, so that's why
it's
he went with the condoms. He's like, oh,
no, no, no. It's just,
oh,
it's like they think, oh my God, this guy's fucking amazing, right?
right.
So if he gets like one number wrong on the condom thing, they're not going to be like, fucking throw the rockets away, throw the self driving cars away. Throw all that stuff away. Look, he got a number wrong on the number of the
Well, I'm not
dollar amount for the condoms. He's fucking irredeemable.
I'm not really interested in like what I mean, you're correct. I'm not really interested in what like people's perception is of Elon in this whatsoever. People are going to
Uh-huh.
think people's perception of Elon is going to be entirely rooted on if they're pro-Trump or anti-Trump. That's like 99% of it. So I'm not even remotely interested in that. What I'm
Right.
interested in is in personally, I want to have faith in the person who's supposedly adjudicating and doing all this stuff. If they're saying things that don't make sense to me, like, doesn't seem to, he's saying things about the interest rate increasing and government borrowing, which doesn't make sense. He's saying things about, 50,000 in 50 million in condoms, which is not true. Like it doesn't breed confidence in me in terms of the process, is what
You
I'm
want
saying.
someone that has like a spotless track record. You want someone that gets every single thing absolutely
Well, I feel
correct
like the
100% of the time.
Well, I feel like the way that you're framing that is like as if Elon said 20 things and he said one thing, and I'm like, oh, he said one thing wrong. Like in that Twitter space, that was the example he gave of why it was bad. That was the one
No, I
example he gave, and
look,
it's not true.
I know.
So
It's totally
I
it's
would like
totally not
someone
true.
who is making an argument that seems to me to be true and coherent in terms of me to have confidence in terms of them cutting entire government organizations.
Yeah.
Because I agree
I
with what
do
Joni
look, I
Ernst was
do. I
saying.
just I
I think there
I
does need to
say it
be.
to exaggerate the point that you're never going to get someone that is 100% accurate all of the time. So
Yeah, but
that's
you
the
you
only
understand
reason
you're
why I'm
saying it. It's
saying it.
it's it's weird because you're saying it in a way to sort of undermine my what I'm trying to lay out here in a way
You're
that I
saying
don't
he
think is
got the
really
number wrong
fair.
on the condoms.
Okay.
I get that. Yeah, look, I understand. You're saying he got the number wrong on the condoms and that we should question what Elon Musk says because he got the
Right.
number wrong on the condoms.
Yes.
That's a steel man of your argument,
That
right?
is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Because I agree with Joni Ernst. Obviously, there does need to be transparency. Obviously, I think these agency needs to be completely reformed. If there is no transparency, I just don't trust I don't trust Elon to be the one to do it at this stage from what he's saying, the way he's handling it. And also because it seems like so much of the conversation is based around like how there's this trick when you're reading the mainstream media where they'll say an anonymous staffer told us that Donald Trump ate a baby.
Yes.
And you're
Yeah. He
like, oh,
grabbed the wheel, through the wheel. He tried to run pedestrians over on the
right, right.
sidewalk.
It's like, yeah. And so when you read these articles, that's why I always say, like, okay, you have to be real careful. If anyone ever says like anonymous source, because like, what does that mean? Like, it could be true, whatever the claim is, or it could be completely not true. It's an anonymous source. Who knows? There's no way to like adjudicate that information. Right.
Right.
And right now, so that was kind of like the left's ploy was you'd have a news article that would cite an anonymous source. And so it's like, okay, you can't really ever find out if that's true or not. And I feel like we have the right wing version of that now on X, where it's like I see all these X accounts of like big kind of right wing accounts that will say, like, oh, I have an anonymous source or I have an anonymous friend who like works in US aid and they're telling me XYZ. And it's like, okay, is that true? I don't fucking, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. There's no way to find any of this information out. So I don't really like that Elon seems to be relying very heavily on these like random Twitter accounts to make determinations about USAID or government cutting or government spending or any of these things.
Look, I have no faith in Elon Musk in the realm of macroeconomics. Elon Musk sees everything from a business owner's perspective, which has a lot of value. It really does.
Mhm.
Like you can understand finance from that perspective, and I'm sure he does, probably better than me, obviously, because he's been dealing with banks his entire life and financing his various endeavors. So, but it's just, I mean, I think he's obviously a smart guy. I don't know if he's being dishonest on the condoms thing or it's just like a minor oversight. So I only exaggerate because I just think it like there's a lot of reasons why him getting it wrong just doesn't seem like a big deal to me. Obviously, it seems like it's more important to you, but like the interest rate thing is way, I mean, that's a much bigger infraction for me
Right, but that's
personally,
but
but
that's my point is that like if Elon Musk is in charge of interest rates and then he says something about interest rates that you're like that's just completely not true, you're like, well, that's a big red flag.
well, yeah, but this is a thing. obviously there's trade-offs everywhere, right? We
Hmm.
could have a Kamala Harris administration where nobody's going to go through and try to find the waste, fraud, and abuse, right? They're just going to continue to pile it on. So
Right.
while Elon Musk may be an imperfect messenger in this game, at least we've got somebody like working on the problem, right? I think that's the win for me, that somebody's actually in there trying to fix some things.
Um, yeah, maybe. As I said, I think what you're going to see, this is my prediction. I think what you're going to see 100% is going to happen is that most of whatever USAID is doing is just going to get rolled under the State Department.
Yeah,
And
that's what
almost
they're looking
everything,
to do.
like 90% of probably that funding is just going to get, completely go back to exactly what it was doing. And it's, I mean, I guess it's good if 10% goes away, right? But
Elon
that's what's
Musk
going to
made
happen.
this grand public proclamation that I think is going to continue to drive him. Like I think he said, "Oh, we can get 4 trillion or 2 trillion." Or he's
He wants
talking
to get
about
rid of 1 trillion a year as a goal.
Okay, okay, yeah. Which is just, I mean, man, if there's that much waste and fraud in the government, I mean, that's massive. That's like a big, big, big story. So the question is whether or not he can find that much. So I do think
Right.
that's what he's trying to do. So this might be why he inflates his condom number, because he's like, okay, look at that, 50 million counts towards my 1 trillion, right? He
Hmm.
doesn't want it to be $25,000. He wants it to be higher up. So
Yeah, but
I'm
I don't think it's going to behoove him if he's going to basically be listening to random Twitter accounts to figure out where to cut the government spending. And then it ends up being that like 90%, 80% of things he's trying to cut just doesn't even end up getting cut anyway, because it's going to get rolled in the State Department and nothing actually changes. And it's like, oh, okay.
right.
You know, maybe you should have
Look, I
actually
don't.
looked into the larger organizations and the one that are like less than 1% of the budget.
What's going on with this random Twitter account? You brought it up a couple of times.
There's all these random Twitter accounts that are making all these accusations about how USAID is like evil, deep state, CIA, left wing,
Hmm.
everything bad in the world.
Well, unless they're
And Elon
pointing
just
to
retweets them
specific
all.
programs. Look, unless
Elon
he's
retweets
pointing
them
there,
all.
unless they're like some sort of whistleblower who wants to remain
They're not
anonymous so they
whistleblowers.
can keep their job. Well, look, if I'm an anonymous whistleblower, I'm probably going to go to Twitter and like try to point someone in the direction to the stuff, right?
Yeah, they're not whistleblowers. I would agree with that. Yeah, but they're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're Chinese operatives. So your complaint is that he's retweeting Chinese operatives, which
Well,
I don't like that. Look, I'm with
it's
you.
not that my complaint isn't that he's retweeting. My complaint is he using those as where to
As
look,
sources,
as sources of where to look? That's what my
well,
complaint.
he can go into the budget line by line now. He's got read access to the payments that Treasury's making. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
would he go to some anonymous Twitter when he could literally go to the fucking Treasury's budget?
Because if he's got 6 people and they're like, here's a budget, and it's like a bajillion lines of code and data and names, that's like finding a needle in the haystack. Where do you start? That's like a shit ton of work. And so
Yeah,
if you have a bunch on Twitter saying, look at this, look at
I
this, look
know
at
where
this,
you
look at
start.
this,
I know
that's he
exactly
goes,
where you
oh,
start.
okay, here's the roadmap of where I start.
You start in the search box. And if it doesn't have a search box, you create one. That's where you start.
Now they did actually do that to some extent, where they created a search box for like woke terms, right? But then that's where it came to the whole conclusion. This is the problem, is that that's at first that's what they were doing, and then Elon had his famous like, oh, we were like first trying to look at the various USAID programs, figure out what was good and what was bad, and then we just made the determination that the whole thing is bad and has to be removed,
Right.
essentially. So
Yeah, it's so difficult because I don't Elon has become a political animal, right? Like he
mhm.
understands politics and basically, well, he's always kind of been good at marketing. Obviously, none of his companies pay anything for advertising because he kind of does advertising the same exact way as Trump does advertising, right? He plays the media into talking about his products and services. So,
Right.
I think there is going to be some amount of playing up what he's doing. Ultimately, we have to look at what is finally done in the
Of
end.
course, of
So
course. Yeah.
I think that's where the
Well,
rubber meets the
you
road,
you are
right?
correct in terms of yes, we have to ultimate like obviously it's breaking news, so everyone wants to talk about it. There is sort of this. We have to sort of see how it all shakes out. Maybe it shakes out good. Maybe it shakes out bad. Maybe it shakes out some combination of good and bad. Um, it's interesting to me because it's essentially like if Kamala won and then she's like, I'm gonna put George Soros in charge of funding, figuring out how to like cut all the Republican programs out of the government.
Oh my God, this is the argument Cenk Uygur made.
Oh, did he say that?
Fuck
That's
yeah, like
hilarious.
he kept hitting the George Soros, George Soros, George Soros.
Well,
When
it's an apt
I just
comparison.
I don't think so. I
It's
really don't think so.
completely apt. What do you mean? How's it not?
Well, it's apt in the fact that he's like a activist billionaire. And well, I guess Elon has kind of turned activist billionaire. George
Yeah, to
Soros
be
has
clear,
like
I'm not talking about in
always
terms
been on
of
the
like,
left. George Soros is also like a engineering genius.
right.
Like that's where the analogy kind of breaks down.
Yeah, in terms of like George Soros, I mean, I think George Soros was like a banker or something, right? But
Ju-
like I'm assuming him and Elon have different skill sets. I just mean in terms of like the other side's perception of him. Like if
Yeah, yeah, but
yeah, like if George Soros was put in charge of this, every Republican would be having a complete meltdown and being like, oh my God, the deep state is taking over the government. And then it's like
but
Elon,
why? Why would they have the meltdown?
because they'd say George Soros has been promoting and funding all of these programs and things that we don't like, right?
Because George Soros wants to defund the police, and Elon Musk wants to plant a flag, an American flag on Mars. So I think that's night and day. That's where the analogy breaks down.
Yeah, if you look at it, well, if you decide to look at it entirely from the right wing perspective, that is how you would see it. If you look at it, I think from a more neutral perspective of yes, Elon wants to put a flag on Mars. He also has been talking about how the Democrats are all evil people who want to import brown people into the country to buy votes and have been doing this for years. And
As
that
long as
Trump
they're
probably
working for
won
Elon,
the
what's
election in 2016. It's kind of like, oh, okay, like that's it's he's a very politically charged, and he says that he's gonna personally fund any primary challenge against anyone that stands against Donald Trump in any way.
he really wants that flag on Mars?
Yes, I'm just
What do
saying.
you?
So it's kind of like what I'm saying. I think the George Soros comparison is apt, and I think people on the right need to have some acknowledgement, or at least some awareness, some self reflection in terms of what's actually going on here.
But hmm. I guess just the immigration thing. I can see people on the left seeing immigration as this, like seeing Elon Musk wanting to limit immigration the same as people on the right see George Soros wanting to defund the police.
Right.
I can see them being like hair on fire. Oh my God, immigration. What? But
It's
part
not a
of me
question of
said,
limiting immigration. It's a question of promoting the idea that Democrats are intentionally importing brown people and illegal immigrants in the country for their evil, nefarious purposes. It's
I
very
just
different than saying
we
I want to
we
limit immigration.
we disagree, and this is straight out of the dictator's handbook. Because in the dictator's handbook, they say that obviously you want to expand your winning coalition, and opening up immigration is a way to expand your winning coalition. So you don't believe the Democrats are letting in immigrants to gain some sort of electoral advantage. I think it's obvious that they are. So when Elon Musk talks about that stuff, I think there's some truth to it. Like the numbers might be malleable, but you don't think this is happening at all? You don't think where are you at on that?
I
What's
don't
your
think that
specific
I do
position?
not believe that Democrats are consciously saying, I want to allow illegal immigrants to sneak into the country so that either they can illegally vote in elections. I guess that because that was actually Elon. Elon wasn't even
Well, they will
saying
legally vote eventually though. That's
Elon
the
wasn't
thing.
even, well, hold on, because I don't even Elon wasn't even just making the argument that like, well, they're going to intentionally allow illegals into America who are then going to have children. Those children have birthright citizenship. Then they're going to vote for Democrats. I mean, he said that, but his primary argument, I believe, was that he was like, no, they're going to sneak in the country illegally, and then they're going to illegally vote in the election,
Okay, yeah.
and that's what the Democrats want. They want to have a bunch of like an army of illegal immigrants in America voting for president or whatever. That I don't believe is happening.
That's a harder claim to
Right.
justify.
Yeah.
The claim that they're letting in illegal immigrants as potentially future voters, I think is straight out of dictator's handbook and happening all the time.
I don't think that's the thought process there, because also there's no, again, I don't even know why people would think that there would be some guarantee that people coming from Central and South America are going to be lifelong Democrat voters.
Because they're dumb.
Okay. I guess they're just all retards, like maybe.
People act
Right.
act on their beliefs all the time. Look, I don't believe that he who has the most money is going to win the election. But I know the politicians believe that. They totally believe that and are acting on that wrong information in every single election. That's why they want to raise so much fucking money.
Here's a good example. So like everyone always brings this up. When Obama was president, he was the chief deporter of people, right? So obviously, Obama, Democrat president, why was he not part of the conspiracy, right? Why was he deporting all these people? Why was he not engaged in this behavior? That's a complete counterfactual to that claim. And then you find out, well, Obama actually started getting stifled from doing this by some of these sanctuary cities, which shows that there's a complete disconnect between the local government and the federal government, even though they're both Democrats, even though they're both blue.
Well, they want the cheap labor, so.
Well, yeah. So to me, it makes more sense that you have local communities want cheap labor, that you have Democrats who are basically buying into the whole racism angle about the whole thing. They like to attack Trump when he was president the first time with the kids in cages thing. It was a very useful, political tool to say Trump is racist, racist, racist. So to me, all these things seem to align with the facts pattern much more clearer than they're trying to import a bunch of people to illegally vote, even though in-person voter fraud is like teeny tiny low.
Well, look, you make the point that different people in the coalition are going to do it for different reasons. Like some could think, obviously, this is going to make our voter numbers go up. You have a large portion of the Democratic Party right now that believes they didn't go woke enough in the last election and they need to go full woke in order to win the next election. Okay. I would argue that's delusional, right?
Yeah. Well,
but they are making decisions based on that belief. And it's the same thing with the immigration thing. People can make decisions based on that belief, even though it's a wrong belief.
Of course, but it's split. There's some people that think the Democrats in the Democratic Party think the Democrats need to go woke and need to go super woke. There's some people that think the Democrats need to do the Fetterman and go anti woke. Right? I don't know which coalition is going to win. Obviously, the DNC.
Fetterman, I think, is closer to the truth. But
I think Fetterman is closer to the truth too. But obviously, those DNC elections do not bode well for which coalition is, the dominant one at the moment. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the Democrats at the moment.
It's so funny.
See what happens.
I listened to this Christopher Rufo podcast. It was super interesting. I guess Christopher Rufo spent a bunch of money hiring ex-CIA investigators to kind of figure out what is going on inside the leftist coalition. And they compiled some big report.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, look, I'll send you a link. They compiled some big report that said that the enthusiasm level on the left, like normally the left has this just enthusiasm level where they can get people to run out in the streets and just protest and go wild. And now that level has dipped to the point where they can't really get people to do anything. Like it's just sort of collapsed. Yeah, exactly. So it is quite fascinating. That made me think, oh yeah, this is like people are done. Look, even in these kind of career protester environments, they have to be getting sick of the fucking walking on eggshells around anyone, right? That's no way to cobble together some sort of social coalition.
Well, I think the demotivation, I don't know if it's probably partially the walking eggshells, but I think it's more so just Trump's victory demoralized them. That's part of what I'm concerned here with some of the things that Trump is doing is I want Trump to be successful, or at least successful enough in his second term that it does drive the nail of death into the woke movement, the woke virus in the left. And what I'm concerned about is if there's a lot of overreach and things start getting reversed, if he's doing things that, everyone's running around with their hair on fire saying this is the worst thing ever, I feel like it's going to pump life back into that movement. It's going to start motivating those people to get back out in the streets, and it's going to give those people power again.
Well, I think the media is going to try and spin them up, but I mean, even the media's numbers collapsing kind of mirrors this narrative. And I mean, to go bring it back to what we originally, how this came up, the DNC thing, that it just seems like it seems like a giant echo chamber because they have a completely different read on the
They
situation
do.
going
Yeah,
on, which
completely.
is just batshit crazy and just seems batshit crazy. So
Right.
we'll see how things play out.
They
I'll
also,
post a link for you guys, the Christopher Roof people are asking for in the chat.
right.
So I'll find
They
it now.
also, I don't know if this will be, I'm assuming this will be granted in the Marco Rubio life-saving exception, but I don't know if it is at the moment. They halted monitoring of Ebola and avian flu. So we have like people that monitor, because a lot of these viruses, obviously, they don't start in America, they start in other places in the world and they kind of spread. So it's generally pretty important for us to keep our eyes on these sorts of things.
Yeah. Look, there's a bunch of stuff that goes on that probably is important. So
Right.
it's, you got to kind of look closely. But I think they're doing the kind of line item thing that,
Right.
that
Well, they're not. I will not. They're
Vivek,
not. But,
funny they kicked Vivek to the curb because this was the thing that Vivek,
well, that
oh, they're not doing the line item thing?
no, they just got they're trying to do the Vivek strategy, which is to just get rid of everything and then rebuild it afterwards. Right. That's the strategy. And that's actually, it's funny because in the conversation, the X space, it was Elon, Joni Ernst, Vivek, there's someone else. I remember who the other person was. And Vivek was all like, yeah, he's like solely on board with this because that was his idea. His idea was to wipe the slate clean and start anew, essentially. Um, but there was something else that Elon said in that conversation that, I'm wondering if it is going to cause a split between Elon and the populist right. Because in that conversation, Elon he had the old neoconservative talking point, which I'm not sure how that resonates in the MAG movement, where he was saying that him and Vivek said very explicitly that they want to remove all regulations on businesses, period. And that
Right.
was kind of like the old neoconservative Bush era Republican, big business. Like we want to just remove every regulation, period. And a lot of the kind of populist energy was a turn away from big business to say a lot of the big businesses went woke. A lot of big businesses are shipping their jobs overseas. They're fucking over American workers. So it's kind of I'm interested to see if there is going to be some kind of eventual conflict down the road between Elon and the right wing populists because I don't think they have the same goals or the same endpoint at all.
Right. They didn't on the H-1B visa thing, obviously. So
You're right.
huge
That's true.
split immediately.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because if it was up to Elon, there would be no restrictions whatsoever on hiring as many, foreign or illegal laborers as you want. So
Ah, that's hilarious. Well, look, Dan sent me a tweet of Joe Rogan talking about the Kamala Harris thing. So I sent you a copy of it. I thought maybe we can watch that. Do you have anything more to say about the Elon stuff, or I don't want to cut you off?
um let's see. Elon Musk is being sued because the law is that he has to recuse himself from
Business
anything
wise, oh,
related
that's gonna
to
be
his
tough, right?
businesses. Yeah, so that's interesting how that's all going
Didn't
to play out.
didn't Trump? I mean, Trump kind of shined that on. Well, no, I guess he turned the Trump businesses over to his
No, so
kids.
there's
That's
an
what happened.
exception for the president and vice president
Oh,
specifically.
really?
Yes.
So anyone acting as some sort of government liaison has to
Who's not
divest,
the president or vice president? Yeah,
right?
has to be divested or recuse himself.
That's why McMaster's had to resign as general, right? because he couldn't be a
Yes.
general
Well,
and
no,
a
that was, I mean, that was military. It wasn't like a business thing.
he had to
But
join civilian ranks. Well, that
what?
it's just kind of the same concept of
Right, right, right.
yeah,
Um,
divesting in whatever your
I guess the other thing
vocation
I
is.
wanted to just talk about briefly. I mean, it's a different topic, so if you want to watch this video that you're talking about, but I just want to talk about, we had the conversation about is is Trump going to be like the forward-looking candidate, or is it going to be revenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, so far we've had, Trump fires all the inspector generals. Trump fired and is trying to fire any lawyer at the DOJ that was involved in any sort of prosecution against him. And then now we have this very interesting scenario where it seems like Trump wants to fire, or he wants information on every FBI agent that not only was involved in any sort of investigation against him with the documents case or January 6th case, but any FBI agent that was involved in any investigation against any January 6th case whatsoever. And
Right.
so the acting head of the FBI has told the Trump team to pound sand, that he wasn't going to do that, which is interesting. And so we might kind of have this self-fulfilling prophecy where Trump is like, the FBI is out to get him, and then he like pisses off the FBI enough that they actually are out to get him because they're like, apparently, the obviously a lot of the January 6th investigations were, there's so many of them, there's like, hundreds of different people that, you're talking about like thousands of different FBI agents were involved in some capacity with all these investigations. And I mean, it would seem pretty crazy to me, especially if you're not just going to fire. I mean, obviously, I'm not in favor of him firing anyone who was just a lawyer or an FBI agent that was like assigned by their boss to investigate something. But if you're going to fire any FBI agent that was involved in any capacity of investigating any January 6th case, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, this is a problem. We've gone down this road, right? Like, obviously, people are worried for what happens when they leave office. I mean, that was the argument for Biden pardoning so many people and his whole family. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people made a credible argument that Trump could go after them and they needed protection. How is this any different?
Right. Well, but this is even going beyond that, because it's not just people that investigated me, it's people that investigated anyone that was accused of a January 6th crime.
Right. Yeah, he's trying to
So it's
protect
not even just
himself and the people around him.
right, or no, his supporters even, right, which is
Yeah, it's people
a whole
around
nother
him.
level. And well, it's kind of interesting because we watched the Cash Patel hearings. This was part of the Pam Bondi hearings, and Cash said very explicitly, you know, we need to focus on stopping, drug crimes and gangs. And I'm going to be looking forward, not backward. I'm going to be looking forward, not backward. And it's kind of interesting that this big fight with the FBI is happening before Cash even gets, put in place. If he was in place, it would be much easier for Trump to implement all this. So I'm wondering if like they're trying to basically clear the deck before Cash gets into the FBI so that they don't basically mar Cash's reputation. Where like if he gets in the FBI and the first thing he does is fire every FBI agent involved in the January 6th prosecution, it's going to obviously look like super like political and bad and all that stuff.
Are people going to go after Trump when he leaves office in 4 years?
Depends on what he does this time around, I guess.
Hmm. Would you bet money no one's going to go after him, even if he's like, has his record is pristine through the next 4 years?
If no, I don't think they will, because it's not, he can't run for office again
Right.
unless he does something
Yeah,
really crazy,
that's a good point.
you know. Because yeah, he'll be out of politics, and I think this is the thought process. He'll be out of politics. Going after Trump is obviously whatever he does, right? Unless it's something like completely horrible, which I don't think is the case. It's going to be perceived as political. So there's going to be a lot of pressure pushing people away from going after Trump. So I think unless he does something super crazy, I don't think anyone's going to go after Trump.
And he didn't pardon himself or his family the first time around, right?
I don't believe so.
He didn't
He
do any
he
of that
part well he
stuff.
pardoned. I don't think he didn't pardon himself. He didn't pardon family members. He pardoned a bunch of like Steve Bannon, like a bunch of people that were like in his administration and cabinet, but they'd already been,
They'd
I
done
believe,
different things. Yeah, they weren't
yeah, I
like,
don't think they weren't preemptive to my knowledge. They were,
right.
accused of not showing up in Congress and, things like that. So,
Yeah. I don't know the situation here, so I don't
Well,
know. I mean, I've seen some of the January Sixers talking, and it seems like some of them got railroaded. Like it's
mhm.
not impossible to imagine out of 1,500 people that some people got
Oh, sure. I'm
totally
sure.
fucking
Right.
railroaded. Yeah. And look, I think the justice system, I mean, sometimes it's hit or miss. I think innocent people do get railroaded in the justice system. So,
Right. But it
um,
seems weird to me. It's like, we have a justice system. These people went through the justice system. And it's strange to me that unless you have the lawyer, unless you know that the lawyers did something illegal or immoral or wrong, to just fire anyone just that was involved in the process.
right.
That's crazy to me. Same thing with the FBI people. Unless you know that they did something specifically wrong, it's totally crazy that you're just like, I'm just gonna fire like blanket anyone involved in the process.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's definitely not good because there's probably a bunch of innocent people in there, right? Their boss just told them, "Here, check this out."
Yeah.
All of a sudden, their name is on the
Right.
investigation, and it's like off. Like they could even be Trump supporters, right?
Of course.
They could even be investigating to clear Trump's name.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Are you, because when I hear about all these firings, I do worry about the fifth estate risk of, and this actually Chris Christie brought this up, and it was a good point. He said, if Trump fires 1,000 FBI agents, he said it's going to take a long time to get those, to re-staff up the FBI, and in the interim of that, of being down 1,000 agents, like that's 1,000 less people that can stop drugs and drug trafficking in the country. That's 1,000 less people that can investigate terrorism in the country. It's 1,000 less people that can stop like CP from being distributed. Like the FBI does a lot of good things that people want, and to just like take a huge blow and demoralize the organization,
Yeah,
and
that's
it'll
not
take,
good.
and because I do worry about this fifth estate risk of like, if there's all these mass firings in the government, I mean, it's going to take a long time to fill these positions back up if they even can get filled back up. If you fire like, a lot of just normal workers, not just the leadership, but a lot of just normal workers in the government. And that, a lot of things are going to start falling apart. They're not going to be working properly.
Who's this tweet from? Officer Lou. The breaking acting FBI director Driscoll has acknowledged in a leaked internal memo that a significant portion of the FBI was involved in investigating Trump and his supporters, stating, "We understand that this encompasses thousands of employees who took part in these investigations, including myself and Deputy Director Kisan." So all these people are gone now? He fired
No, no,
a
no, no, no.
thousand
Well, first
people,
of all,
1,500 people?
it's interesting because the person that tweeted that out, obviously they're trying to frame it in the pro of getting to the FBI. And if you actually read the leak thing, it um, says we understand there's a lot of media reporting and rumors surrounding potential changes to the FBI. This includes reporting and rumors about actions that very seriously impact our workforce. Consistent with our commitment to share information with you as we receive it, Acting Deputy Director Kissen and I want to provide you with an update. Late this afternoon, I received a memo from the Acting Deputy Attorney General notifying me that 8 senior FBI executives are to be terminated by specific dates unless these employees have retired beforehand. I've been personally in touch with each of them impacted. The memo also directs me to provide by noon on Tuesday, February 4th, which is today, the following: all current and former FBI personnel assigned at any time to any investigations or prosecutions related to the events that occurred or near the United States Capitol on January 6th.
How do you get off that list? You're like, oh, I want off that list. Get me off that list.
Right, right. So and unless there's been movement today, yesterday, the acting FBI deputy director said he's not going to do this. He said no.
I was reading more of that Mark Esper book,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so fascinating because he basically like gives Trump a total game plan for a second administration, thinking that Trump obviously is done, right? He's writing the book when it's over for Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's saying all these things like, because there's certain things that he doesn't want to do that Trump wants, but he doesn't want to do. And he's like, if Trump gives me a direct order, then I have to do it.
Right.
And it's almost like now Trump knows, right? Oh, all I had to do is give him a direct order. Fuck. So now he's running in there and he's like, direct orders everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of
That
funny.
that's a good point because yeah, there's a lot of interesting things where like these people, if
They're
they'll
trying to
get
manipulate the situation. Yeah.
well, there's two things that are there's a couple things that are going on. Some of it, is and this happened actually, we when we watched the was it when Trump wanted to fire the head of the DOJ, remember, and replace him with the Enron lawyer?
Yeah, look, was the whole time in that meeting, he's trying to figure out like what power do I actually have, right? He even
He
says,
yep,
"You're not going to fire this guy, are you?" And he's like, "Sir, you're the only one that can fire him." And he's like,
right.
"Oh yeah, well I'm not going to fire him."
Yeah, there's like this weird habit, and I don't know if this is true of all presidents, but it definitely would seem to be true from Trump, which would be someone who works under Trump would be like, you're fired or you need to go do XYZ. That person goes directly to Trump and they're basically able to talk Trump out of doing the action when they go talk to him. And so yeah,
Right.
that's why Esper and a lot of the other people are like, they're like, I'm not gonna listen to any like, any underling that comes and tells me what to do unless Trump tells me what to do.
Yeah, in the book, he's look. I have skipped around. I moved to the end just so I could hear the Cash Patel stuff, but
Right.
then so now I'm kind of going back, and he's talking about like these three main pillars or whatever, but I don't know what the three main pillars are. But he does specifically say at certain points, he's like, I don't want to do this thing, so I want to make sure that Trump doesn't give me a direct order because then I have
Right.
to actually follow
Then you
through
actually
with
have to
it.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. Which is
Which is
interesting.
interesting because you
Yeah.
don't know in the context of the book, you don't know if Trump knows that a direct order is going to make some headway. Yeah. But now I'm just thinking, look, the Trump team definitely read all of these books. Someone on the inside read all of these books, and
Right.
it's just
Right.
like a fucking game plan on how to deal with a second administration. So they're basically giving away all of the places that Trump fucked up, thinking, okay, Trump is not going to be like he's
Oh, I
off
see
the
what you're
field
saying.
now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but
Maybe.
now it's
Right.
like, oh shit. Like
It could
the
be.
guy that you hate, you're basically whispering into his ear what he could have done to like been more effective.
It could be that Trump didn't know that he had to, exert direct authority. My read of like when we were listening to that interview with him wanting to fire the DOJ guy wasn't that he didn't think that it was up to him, was just that he didn't necessarily want to put his own, he didn't want to put himself on the line with the firing if it ends up having like this massive blowback. Like he wanted to be able to throw someone under the bus, essentially. And if it's up to him, then suddenly it's like, oh, I actually have to like, it's like far riskier for him to direct someone personally to do something as opposed to an underling he could always like throw away.
No, my read was because the guy that they were talking about firing was the guy who stepped up and said he would take over and send the letter for Trump. So he was a Trump loyalist. So my read of the
No, he was
situation
firing the
was,
guy for that guy.
what do you mean?
I
It
don't know
was
if you
it
misspoke.
was
You said he was going to fire that guy. No, he was going to fire the guy so that guy could be the head of the DOJ.
I thought he was talking about firing the guy that was going to take over for him.
No, there was so at that point the head of the DOJ, Bill Barr had quit or resigned. I forget, there was someone else who was the acting head of the DOJ at the time.
We're t-
And
we're talking about the environmentalist attorney, the guy who
no,
was
no, no, no.
completely
Wait, hold on.
unqualified that they were going to put in the position,
No,
and
no,
then
no,
he
no,
was
no, no,
going to
no, no,
send
no,
the
no, no,
letter.
no, no, no. Okay. Bill Barr resigns. Then I forget whoever's under him is like the acting head of the DOJ. Okay.
Yes.
And then whoever that guy was didn't want to send out the letter that the Enron attorney created. So Trump wanted to fire that guy and replace him.
With the
It was
environmentalist
it
attorney.
was Jeff
Yes.
Rosen. Yeah, he wanted to replace Jeff Rosen with the Enron guy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But look, it's been a while since I saw it, so and memory is imperfect. But my impression was that he asked if the guy was going to fire the environmentalist attorney that he was going to put in place because
Oh, because he tried to
this
take
was an
his
attempted
job. Yes.
this
Right.
was an
Right. Right.
attempted coup, right?
Yes. Yes. Right.
And the guy said, "No, I'm not going to fire that guy. You are the only one that can fire that guy. And he's like, well, I'm not going to fire that guy. Like,
Right.
he's like my guy. What are you talking about?
Right.
So, yeah.
That's true. That did happen. Yeah. That was funny. He's like, okay, get back to work, I guess.
Yeah.
Coup averted.
Forget any of this ever happened.
Right. Right.
And look, not a coup in the sense of a governmental coup, obviously.
Well, I mean,
just
yeah,
obviously
tried to coup
coups happen all
Jeffrey
the
Rosen
time in
position.
businesses, right? Somebody
Right.
comes in and steals your job.
Yeah.
They all conspire against you because you've got the best money making night at the restaurant. So everyone
Right.
does a coup on you.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, what's this clip you want to watch?
Well, I just thought it'd be fun because there's like the Harris. Now there is officially the Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris feud going on, right?
Oh yes, because that she basically said it was his fault. Did he respond? Oh, he responded. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess let's.
Is it in the watch together? Or is this Twitter video?
It's a tweet. I guess it's 5 minutes. Can we shut up for 5 minutes? I'm not sure that's even possible.
Well, I don't know if we'll get hit if it's 5 minutes of uninterrupted content, but we can watch it, some of it.
Let's see here. So it says breaking. Joe Rogan confirms that Kamala Harris campaign lied about Joe not making time for Kamala.
Ooh,
he says that they refused to commit to a time, lied that he was unavailable, pretended they sent someone to view his set. Oh my God. And this lie was Kamala's team covering their asses. Yeah, a lot of people think that now.
Interesting. Okay, so let's hear.
3, 2, 1, go.
Today. I guess it's probably a good time to talk about this. There was a thing that came out recently. There was a book. There was some book about the Kamala Harris campaign where they talked about her getting on this show. And they said a bunch of things that weren't true. They talked to, supposedly talked to like 150 different people about her and, what happened with her coming on the show. I don't know if it's 150. A lot of people. They didn't talk to us, and which is kind of crazy. And it was just like, they didn't even ask. But they said things that just weren't true. One of the things they said that weren't true was that we lied about the day that Trump was coming on. No, we just didn't tell you that Trump was coming on. He was already booked a long time ago. This is how it worked. Trump was really easy to book, like super easy. We offered one day. He said yes. That was it. There was no, what are we going to talk about? How long is it going to be? Is it going to be edited? There was nothing. Yeah. What's the waiver? Here, give me that waiver. Sign it. It was so easy. So he was already booked. They never committed to doing the show. So all this talk, there was another thing they said that the reason why they did the Beyonce thing, the Beyonce event in Houston, was so that they could be in Texas to do my show. They never agreed to do the show. None of that's true. They never agreed.
That's fucked.
They also said that they sent someone down here to the studio to do a walkthrough of the set. That's not true.
It was
the Trump administration
weird.
did.
And I remember when we talked about this story, because the Kamala people were like, oh, we like created this whole, thing to go to Texas with Beyonce.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, and then we're like, okay, we can do it. And then Joe Rogan's like, oh, we can't do it. It's a personal day. And we're like, wait a minute. That's very bizarre. If you were going to, have this whole thing set up in Texas, why would you not make sure you had it locked in first before you set up the whole thing with Beyonce? That doesn't really make any sense.
They're fucking lying. I'm at 128. What are you at?
I'm at 128. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, well, I'm at like 125, but I'll move up to
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
If they are trying to say that they, as in the entire federal government, well, I don't think the Trump, well, I guess the Secret Service is a part of the federal government. Maybe you can kind of get away with saying that because the Secret Service came down here for Trump and looked around, that we sent someone down, but it was not. It was the Trump administration sent them down because they're the only ones that had a date to do the show. These people didn't have a date to do. They never agreed to do the show. This is really important. Even after Trump went on, they offered for me to come to D.C. and do a show with Kamala. But even then, it was the same deal. It was only like 45 minutes to an hour. And, you know, it was not on my set. And I said that, look, he did it here. We should probably do it here. Like, if it's possible to do it here. Obviously, when he did it, it had an enormous result. I'm willing to do the same thing for her. I wanted to release both of them on the same day. This was my goal. I was even trying to figure out if there was a way that I could do it, and I even offered to do it late that night. So the night that Trump came on, I'm like, what if we do her, like when she's done in Texas, if she came here? But no one ever committed to doing it. This is like really important because they keep pretending that I lied or I did this or I did that. No one, they never committed to doing it.
Well,
We went through, I've got a whole, we have all the receipts, by the way.
Of course.
I have a whole list of conversations that took place. They never said she was going to do it. So this whole idea that we fucked her over and then we fucked her over for Trump, incorrect, just not true.
And she, you know,
But I think it's someone
Sorry.
trying to cover their ass for the fact that she never did it, and if she did do it, it might have had a positive effect.
yeah, it's
If her and I had a good time and we got along great, and she
do you
won over,
think
you know, the air quote
that
young
the person
male
that
vote,
lied
things could have been
because
different.
Who
they
knows?
personally fucked up, and so they're trying to toss the buck, or is it just like they're just trying to basically? I'm sure that whoever's involved in this and Kamala, they got a lot of flack from donors.
Oh,
And
fuck yeah,
people-
they did.
Yeah, and people that want
I
to
gave you
donate.
$1 billion.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a lot of powerful people that are like, what the fuck, Kamala? Why did you not do the Joe Rogan interview? Like, I'm not going to donate money to your theoretical campaign in 2028. I'm not going to donate to you in anything else you do or anyone who works on your staff. And so this is sort of an attempt to be like, whoa, 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 it's not our fault. Listen, we tried, but it's actually big bad Joe Rogan's fault. That we
That's
didn't do it.
exactly what's happening here. That's exactly what's happening here. It's fucking spin to cover their asses.
Mhm.
And Joe knows. Joe's like, look, I booked my own show. They didn't talk to me.
Right.
God, this makes her look so bad too. The fact that Trump is like, oh yeah, that's good. One fucking date.
Yes. Yes.
They throw
Well,
one date at him and he's like, sure.
There was a pretty funny Freedom Tunes cartoon. I don't know if you saw where it was like Trump would agree to do any interview, like from anyone. Like they're like, oh, I'm gonna do it in like a hostage basement from Antifa with a gun. He's like, I'll do it. Like he's just like anything. He'll just do every interview. Like someone's like, do you want to interview? Yes. Do you want to interview? Yes. Like he doesn't even like wait. And then Kamala's like, okay, I need like here's the fucking like super long contract you have to sign in order for me to show up, and you know, you have to put the pillow right in the chair. Like, and I mean, this definitely contorts with that, you know, or confirms, I should say, that, you know, that joke.
Yes, yeah. Look, it's so stage managed and everyone could see it. Everyone could tell. God, just think of the first interview she does with a chaperone. She's
I
got to have her
know.
vice president sit down next to her. Oh my God, it just exudes weakness. Not only that, to be the first female president and exude that weakness. I mean, they called Margaret Thatcher the Iron Lady. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Does anyone call Kamala Harris the Iron Lady?
They
They
her
call
the
her
tin
the
laugher.
wine mom.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's
So ridiculous.
that's why it's so funny to me that when people are like, oh, you know, the reason Kamala Harris lost was because, you know, everyone is sexist and racist.
Oh,
And you're
fuck
like,
no.
no.
Yeah.
No.
That's
Like,
not
I'm
even
sure there's
close
some
to
people
true.
are sexist racist, but I don't think that was, you know, 90% of the situation.
Margaret Thatcher supposedly did an interview during the Soviet Union, like when the Iron Curtain was up, on state-sponsored TV. So I can't imagine a more hostile environment, right? And completely pushed back on the interviewers and just won over the Russian people. Like that's leadership right there.
Right.
You hear all these stories and Kamala Harris lives up to none of them. It's so insane that she's contemplating running again in 2028. Fucking please do. Please get your ass in the primary so that we can laugh. Maniacally at your insanity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm at 319. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm at 314. I'll jump up here.
So this guy's probably trying to cover his ass.
Oh wait,
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Ready?
Yep.
Go.
That's that's what I'm thinking too, is because the reaction to her not coming was like pretty big. And
Who is this hobo? Shit. How do I get on Joe Rogan? Like, who the fuck is this?
They didn't commit to doing it. This
Yeah.
is the thing. While this guy's saying like that we were difficult to deal with, not true. We were super easy. We made it real clear. But also, it's got to be the actual real show. It shouldn't be some fake version of it
What?
where I'm sitting in a conference room. Oh, also, they wanted a stenographer in the room. They wanted staff in the room. They wanted Trump was just in here by himself.
yeah.
Just me, him, and Jamie. That's it. For 3 hours. Like, they wanted to do everything. They wanted it very controlled, and they were really concerned that it wasn't going to be edited. So I don't think they ever really were sure they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Then once
'Cause they
Trump
knew she
did
was
it
gonna
and it had
fuck
this
up.
huge response,
Yeah.
I think then it was like, what the fuck? What are we doing? He just did it. It's got 50 fucking million views. This is so stupid. Why didn't we do it? And so then there was, even then, when they offered to do it in D.C., my manager asked, is she committed to doing this? If I bring this to Joe, no. She hasn't committed to doing this. Have you brought this to her? Like, they wouldn't even say whether or not she had expressed willingness to do it or whether they were trying to convince her to do it.
Okay,
There was-
pause it. This is very
we know-
interesting because this is a whole nother.
I know. It's
This
insane.
is a whole nother level here, which I'm glad we continue to watch this clip. Is so you have this situation, and I think Joe's completely correct, where Harris herself, like, and this really speaks to her shittiness as a candidate and
Fuck,
her
it
shittiness
does. Exactly
as a leader.
right.
Because like the whole point, it's a leader supposed to be like, I'm going to do X. I'm going to be decisive. I'm going to make a decision, and we're going to go forward here, and we're going to implement the decision. And it's like she's fucking wishy-washy about whether she's going to be on the fucking Joe Rogan show. Like, are
I
you for
know.
real? So much so that you can't even get a committal that before I go to Joe and say, hey, you want to fly out to DC and do this, have you got a committed answer from Harris that she's on board doing this? And it's like, oh no, we don't know yet. Like, it's like, what the fuck is happening here? What a disaster.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how these negotiations go with the presidential debates, because she did feel comfortable enough to do one of those, but I think there is a lot of back and
There's
forth.
a lot of back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're asking, what questions are you going to ask? Oh my God. And she's just got this stereotype that's out there in the ether about Joe Rogan being like a Nazi and shit, right? She's thinking it's going to be a totally hostile environment. He's going to drill me on the trans people. What am I going to say?
I am so curious. I want it so badly to see an undercover video of just like, what the fuck
Yes,
is Kamala Harris
yes.
like in a normal conversation?
She's got to be an idiot.
That's why
She's
is
gotta
she
be an
like,
idiot.
is she normal? And it's just for some reason when she's like trying to do this stuff on stage, she just completely freezes. Is she like a complete fucking retard? I want to know so bad. What the fuck is her problem? What is
Well,
her fucking deal?
the editing screams that she gaffes all the time, right? They're like, oh my God, we got to have it edited so we can edit out the gaffes. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what happened with was it the 60 Minutes?
Yeah, the
interview?
view or the and the view. The
And The
view,
View,
she's
yeah.
fucking oh yeah, I do everything exactly the same. I'm Kamala Harris. What?
Oh my God. Like,
I'm at
how are you
full-
supposed to meet Putin? How are you supposed to meet a world leader? You're afraid to be in a room with Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah, what the fuck
You
does
know.
that look like, right?
I know.
Putin,
So
please don't
God.
ask me any tough questions about these trade negotiations.
Right. Oh my God.
We dodged a bullet, man. We dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Yeah. Harris is such a such a pathetic fucking candidate. But this is why Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer,
Yeah, they
all
knew.
They
They
all
knew.
knew that Kamala Harris was a fucking lightweight. They're all like,
Yes.
okay, we're going to go do a primary. We're going to go do a convention. We're going to figure out who's the best candidate. And then Joe Biden over here is like, sorry, Charlotte, I'm going to go with Harris. And they're like, no,
This
what are you doing?
Look, this proves Joe Biden had been on the map, off the map for 3 years, man. He's like, I will endorse Kamala Harris right now.
Yeah. That's another thing. I can't wait till when we like really get some deep dive expose on
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what the fuck was the thought? What was
The
Joe's thought
behind the scenes
process?
book.
Was it loyalty? Was it, as you were saying, like, he wants to be the first person to install essentially the black female candidate. Is it like intentional sabotage? There's so many like potential theories floating out around there.
Yeah. All right, I'm at 437.
Okay.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go.
know for sure there were some people that were supposedly on her staff that were against her doing it. They thought it was because it's a bunch of wokesters. They're basically in a cult. You have a distributor, like if you're willing to go on Fox News, you talk to what's that guy's name, Brett Breyer,
Yeah.
where they cut that off after 20 minutes. When they did that, that's when I was like, look, it's got to be in the studio. It's got to be in the studio, and it's got to be real. It's got to be a real conversation. I had entertained a couple of times going to, but I was like, 45 minutes is just not enough. You and I have been talking an hour and a half already.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's not enough time. You need more time. You need more time to find out what makes someone tick.
And that's
true.
I probably what she was afraid of.
Probably what they were afraid of. Maybe not her.
Maybe
I don't
not
think they
her,
should
yeah.
have been. I think we would have had a good old time.
No.
Hard to say. I mean, Joe Rogan is like a huge stoner. He's probably like, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine he wouldn't have turned to the trans issue, which was just completely uncomfortable for her. So
Yeah, I think she would have done horrible in the conversation. Not even because of anything, because Joe's some sort of hard interviewer. I think she's just so bad in these conversations. She's such a bad candidate. It was insane.
right.
She could not. That was so weird. It's not only could she not herself articulate an answer to these questions on the spot, but she has like a whole fucking team of people. Someone there couldn't come up with something, or maybe they do come up with something and she's just so awful that she doesn't even remember the fucking canned line and she's supposed to regurgitate.
I laughed when he said that she's just surrounded by the woke cult because, I mean, that
Right.
just seems completely accurate, right?
It does, yeah.
All the information, all the sense-making apparatus around her is just completely delusional. So,
Well,
look,
I
I
wouldn't
know
be
people like
surprised.
this. It's scary.
Right. After McCain lost against Obama, you had Steve Schmidt and other people would write books that were about how like Sarah Palin was literally the biggest retard on the planet.
Oh yeah, I know. I
will
read
not be
all
su-
these books. They're
Yes.
amazing.
Those books are hilarious. The whole Sarah Palin thing is pretty terrifying when they
Oh,
talk about
yeah.
how stupid she was. I would not be surprised if we're going to get books like that is like Kamala Harris is just a buffoonish idiot
Yes.
in terms of like what was going on behind the scenes.
I read some books about Hillary Clinton that were like that, the tell-all books about Hillary Clinton.
Well, they would say no one thought she was stupid. It was that she would be paralyzed by
Indecision, yeah.
decisions in terms
Yeah.
of trying to like listen to too many different polls or things like that.
Analysis paralysis is what they
Right.
call it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like we have to analyze everything. Well, sooner or later, you just have to make a decision. So,
Right.
yeah, fascinating stuff. So I guess we're going to super chats now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Oh, I'm glad we watched that. That was very interesting.
I know, fascinating. Thanks for sending that. Dan Irish sent that to me.
Thanks, Dan.
Let's see.
Okay,
I'll bring
excuse
up the super chats.
Okay. Megalathon for 20 Canadian. Thanks so much. Says, hi there, Sitch and Adam. Here's how it was explained to me as a Canadian too, why having a strong US dollar and a weak Canadian is that the US businesses can get Canada raw materials cheaper, so they profit more.
Let's see. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
Yeah. Because there's the production chain. This is a thing. I know supposedly we get a lot of our wood from Canada, but it's not like America doesn't have forests. We just have all the environmentalists that are like, don't cut them down.
Yeah.
So I think we
that's
could
true.
produce wood pretty easily here.
Well, there is, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I would imagine because Canada, is so gigantic and yet it has such a small population. So they're going to definitely have a lot more land, covered with just trees compared to the US.
Right.
Archie for $20. Thank you so much. Says, Adam, if bank loans money and grows the money supply and the government deficit also grows money supply, aren't they kind of competing for that money supply in terms of preventing or causing inflation? Or am I mistaken? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, and a lot of people think it's presumptuous that the Fed thinks interest rates have this big effect on the money supply because of that. yes, obviously the private sector does have a huge influence on the money supply. So
Mm-hmm.
they are competing with one another. Yeah, the money supply is the deficit and the private debt. So,
Hmm. I mean,
but
maybe that's what Elon meant. I'm not sure because he just said it so offhandedly and in such a way that was confusing.
I know why
So,
people only talk about the government debt though. Obviously, because they think there's more of like a check on the lending than there is on the government debt. People perceive of government debt as just wild, obnoxious, out of control spending on shit nobody needs
right.
or wants. Yeah.
Well, maybe in the future we'll watch or talk about that video or something. 'Cause that video was super interesting.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting perspective that Steve Keen is an economist and he's looked at the numbers, so he's got some evidence behind it. And if you can find times when you're getting massive government spending and deflation at the same time, he postulates that the inflation is not being driven by an expanding money supply. So he goes and looks for another reason why what's going on here. And he says that the causal relationship is backwards. So if oil prices spike, if oil prices like double, all of a sudden businesses are going to need more money for the higher oil prices. So they're actually going to have to borrow money and they're going to expand the money supply through borrowing. And it's actually the higher prices that are driving the expanded money supply, which is kind of crazy because like no one believes that, right? That's completely backwards and the
Mhm.
common understanding. So,
Right. It's kind of like when people are like, "Oh, poverty causes crime," and you're like,
yes.
"No, crime causes poverty."
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good example.
this guy's saying like, people think inflation causes prices to rise. And he's saying it's the opposite. Prices rise for some other reason that causes private debt to balloon. Private debt ballooning is what causes inflation.
Yeah.
So
And I think the oil price doubling back in the 70s was an OPEC thing, right? The
yeah, we've
OPEC
talked about
leaders
that a
came
lot.
in and they
Yeah.
were like, look, we want twice as much money for our oil now. And they
Hmm.
realized they had us over a barrel. So they're like, oh, well, I guess we got to fucking pay it. And you can just imagine like that's such a huge input into everything, right?
Right.
So everyone's like, oh, we need more money to keep our business afloat. So they go to the bank and borrow money.
Hmm.
Yeah. Crazy.
They had us over the barrel, literally. Look at
So
that.
so there is more correlation between those two things than there is spending and inflation.
Right. Oh my God, J-Mac, thanks so much, our father, for the $300. Holy shit.
Yeah, where is that? I can't even, it's not
Thank
coming
you.
up on my thing. Yeah, look. Thank
Look
you
at
so
that.
much.
Thank you. J-Mac says, with how absolutely crazy things are, the No Man's Sky update couldn't have come at a better time. Expect a lot less political posting from me since I'll be escaping the Parsons screeching among the stars and beneath the waves. I may even colonize a new star system in the name of Sitch and Adam. Look at that.
Well, thank you so much.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I commend you. I'm not
Yes.
I'm not really like the politics stuff is, I mean, I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day a little bit here because so many people on the left are doing the exact same playbook that they did in 2016. And I don't know, it seems wildly repetitive. So I'm just waiting for the Charlottesville moment to take place again, right? So that they've
Right.
got some talking point that they can run with.
We'll see. But yeah, I saw JMac was saying on Twitter that like when you name places in No Man's Sky, like other players can see it. So everyone could see like the Sitch and Atom
Yeah, that's great.
solar system. So that's pretty cool. So thank you, Jay.
One day I will have time to play. It'll be
Right.
amazing. Although I want to, oh man, I haven't been drawing or painting at all
Right.
lately. Yeah.
Right.
Or writing or doing anything.
Yes.
Which I just.
Bruins for 31 months. Thanks so much. Says, as a Canadian who despises JT and usually likes Trump, Trump was a joke about the tariffs. Like it was just to get praise for shit that was already agreed to. Yeah, I think that's probably the case. It's just to create that visibility. So, which is, I guess, it's smart. Well, it's smart unless it creates problems where Canada ends up making agreements with Europe. So
He
I guess we'll
pissed off
find
a
out.
lot of Canadians with the 51st state comments. I know. Can
He
you
did.
imagine?
You're right.
Like if it's funny, like obviously Putin would never say something like that because he knows, oh my God, they'll give Ukraine nukes. Like if
Right.
Putin came out and said, yes, I think he could be one of the Baltic states, that America could be one of the Baltic states for Russia. America would be like, fucking fire the nukes.
Right.
What the fuck? Fuck you.
Right.
We would give the nukes to Ukraine and make them fire them. We wouldn't fire them ourselves.
Right. Brian for $5 says the government does go to a bank to get money. The Fed is a private bank. The government can't create money. Well, first of all, the Fed is a quasi-private government organization. And we actually, I mean, I'm sure you remember, Brian, we watched that entire YouTube video that was about how money is created, the overly obnoxiously complicated process in which money is created. My point was, which is factually true, is that I think most people think that the government walks hat in hand to a private bank like Chase, like Bank of America or whatever, JP Morgan, any of these banks, and says, hey, can you like lend us, $1 billion? And that's not how it goes at all. So they basically put in the order to be like, oh, create, the Treasury puts in the order to create, the bonds, and then they do it.
The Treasury Secretary's signature is on the money.
Right. That's true. Jonathan Smith for $10 says fractional reserve banking is a feature of all currency systems. It's economic 101. It's economic law. Under gold, under fiat, anytime loans can be repeated on the same money, it happens. Economic law.
I mean, I guess I could send you a link to where the Fed did away with the fractional reserve system. They're not required to have reserves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's tough. Look, this happens all the time, right? People don't change their minds about ideas. They die. And then other people come in that accept the ideas.
As in,
that's how science moves. That's how everything moves.
In the United States, the Federal Reserve eliminated the reserve requirements entirely in the year 2020, instead preferring to use changes in interest rates paid on reserves held by commercial banks as its most important monetary policy instrument to directly influence the broader interest rate level in the economy.
So to simplify that, to incentivize banks to keep reserves instead of requiring them to keep reserves, they actually pay them fucking interest on the money that they have in the bank. That's just like a giant gift to the banks.
So what's the point of even doing it that way?
Well, it keeps money out of the money supply, right? Like if they're just letting it sit in a bank account at the Federal Reserve, it's not out there creating inflation.
Yeah, but isn't that good? I mean, if we're in an inflationary situation, don't you want the banks to keep money out of the
It is.
supply?
It's an inflation fighting tool, sure.
Yeah. So maybe they should have not, done that in 2020.
Throw that link in the chat so people.
It's just
can
in the
look at it.
Wikipedia. If you look up Wikipedia under fractional reserve banking.
I usually have the link to the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Announcement
I know what you're talking
where
about.
they said they did it. So
yeah. So.
Yeah, look, I learned about fractional reserve banking, I think when I was in the 5th grade or 6th grade. I don't know when you learned about it, Sitch, but it doesn't exist anymore. And look, it does seem dumb to me. The system seems better because like you're kind of guessing at how big the money supply should be if you're doing it that way, right? Like you're saying, look, we're going to print a money supply that's this big and allow the banks to 10 times it, but the money supply is much more elastic if you just do it where people have access to credit whenever they want to engage in some endeavor that's probably going to produce economic activity, create jobs, create products and services that are going to drive down prices, right? More products and services means prices come down. The reason why restaurants are affordable is because there's like 10 of them on every city block.
Minus Matthews in the chat says they did away with the ratio, but not with the requirement of reserves. Required reserves are driven by CET1 regulatory ratios. I work in banking, FYI.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might just be some miscommunication of what's going on. Because, I mean, I'm looking at Yahoo Finance article. In March of 2020, the Federal Reserve eliminated the fractional reserve requirement for banks in the United States. That doesn't mean your bank has no cash on reserve, but they got rid of the requirement.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know.
What do you do in banking? I don't have the chat up, so I can't
Right.
see.
I'll see when he responds. Brian for $10 says that the government is borrowing money, it will crowd out private instruments. The money goes somewhere, and the money the government spends can crowd out private investment. Yeah,
This is a theory.
yeah,
I
that
know
is
the crowding out theory. Okay,
right.
they teach it in basic economics.
Yes, that's why I didn't know if that's what Elon was trying to say. That's why I suggested that maybe it's what he was trying to say. He just said it in an autistic way. I don't know, but though I don't know how much investment goes. Like, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of how much buying of bonds crowds out private investment.
Right. Yeah. And I mentioned that. I said, yeah, if the corporate sector wants to sell bonds to raise money to do something and people can buy treasury bonds, yes, they're more likely to buy the treasury bonds because they perceive of the treasury bonds being lower risk.
Mm-hmm.
So the corporate bonds need to offer higher interest rate.
Right.
So they are competing for investment dollars, which I guess that is limited because there are only so many people that have dollars that they want to invest. Yeah, maybe that's what he means, obviously. Like there are investment dollars and there are borrowing money to invest. People don't generally borrow money. Well, they do sometimes. It depends upon how low the interest rates are, right? That's buying stock on margin. Like you're
Yes.
basically putting stock on your credit card when you buy on margin.
I heard the story of this guy who was doing these massive buying stocks on margin, and he actually like way over leveraged and completely got wiped out
You
because
get the margin call, which that's a great movie, Margin Call.
oh, I haven't seen that because I didn't know if you buy stocks that way, if you borrow money from a bank and use it to buy stocks, they all have these agreements where essentially like you have to have you're usually what's going on is that you're basically saying, I'm going to offer some amount of stock I own as collateral to the bank to borrow a bunch of money to buy more stock. And they all have these agreements where if the stock that you currently own as collateral goes under some amount, they can, without even consulting you, automatically sell all your stock just to try to recuperate whatever because they're afraid like it's going to drop and it can totally like fuck you over. So you have to be super careful when you do that.
As careful as you can be.
Yeah. Brian for $5 says also if the government borrows money, it can increase the interest because the government spending will fuel the economy and can cause inflation. Well, I don't think anyone was. Well, I guess
Where
the
was
guy
that?
that we were talking about just now is kind of questioning that, but at the time of the conversation, I don't think that was really the topic.
What was the
And also for $2, Brian, she says, I love the economic talks. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like it.
who is this guy? I can't remember. He was the Biden. He's like a high up economic and advisor for the Biden administration that didn't know why we sold bonds. And it was a huge clip that went viral because they're like, holy shit, he doesn't even know why we fucking sell bonds.
Oh, yes.
So when somebody says, "Oh, I work in a bank," by the way, I'm like, "Look, the fucking top tier Biden strategist doesn't even know how the economy works." Like,
Oh, I'm trying to remember. There might have been a larger clip. We watched a larger clip, and I don't remember if it exonerated him or not in terms of like what the comment was out of context or not. I don't remember.
I have the clip.
Okay.
I think it's at the beginning of this.
We
I
could
have
watch
it
it later.
here.
Doesn't matter. But
It's like
Gene Payment for $5 says U.S. aid pays for a lot of NGOs, which is where the idea that it pays for a lot of leftist programs. Yes. But
I mean,
there's like
I
this
don't-
weird assumption that all NGOs are automatically magically leftist programs that just people just take for granted, which doesn't make any sense. There's
You
lots
know-
of NGOs that are not leftist programs, that are right wing programs.
you never joined the watch together. So
I did not, because we won't watch anything.
anyway, join up.
Jared Bernstein was the name of the guy. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah. How'd you remember?
You remember? He's got a good memory.
Oh, it's in the clip. It's on the screen.
Mitch
Oh,
for
oh, go ahead.
Mitch for 2 $2 says thoughts on Made in Abyss. I haven't watched it. I think didn't you ask the other day? I haven't watched it. Sammy says looks very cutesy, but is super dark and depressing. So I'm probably not going to watch it.
We like happy stuff.
I like happy stuff.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a comedy show, guys.
Anonymous Cow for $10 says reading the economics subreddit is confusing. It's like they're AOC style economists, and their response to everything is corporate greed. They want a shock to the U.S. economy because people voted wrong. Yeah, it's kind of depressing how so many subreddits have just basically been taken over by like very far left political activists. It seems like nowadays
Yeah.
things have been segmented. So
People on the right are out there working and starting businesses and stuff. They're not on Reddit all day.
no, you're wrong. They're on X.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Well, at least they're, in the bathroom or something at work or on their break, right?
Okay. There you go. The Zombie Squad for 30 months. Thanks so much. Says USAID promised me infinite DI burritos. Now they're gone. Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito? There you
God,
go.
I love me some burritos.
Where's
That's
my
for sure.
burritos? Yeah. File Van Go for $5 says we're also buying a facade of democracy in recipient countries, but in reality, an imbalance of power is created, which leads to more bloodshed.
True.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. Yes.
In Dictator's Handbook, they call foreign aid an unmitigated evil.
I'm actually curious as to what have those guys weighed into any of this USAID conversation. I meant to check their Twitter and I forgot.
They have a new edition of Dictator's Handbook too. The Audible did a real sneaky thing. It took my old edition out of my Audible and was trying to sell me the new edition. I had to like message with them to get it actually added back to my account. I was like, fuck you.
Well, really?
Yeah, in
Wow.
order to reread the chapter on foreign aid. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck?
It's funny because I noticed something similar because I opened my Audible to listen to that same chapter. And normally if you go into the store and you type it in,
Yeah.
if you already own it, it'll just say listen. And I typed it in and it said buy. And I was like, what? I'm like, did I hallucinate? Did I like listen to it on YouTube? So then I went to the library specifically and like manually searched for it and I found it. So I was like, oh, what the fuck? So maybe that's the same problem that you had.
I manually searched for it in the library and
It still
when I
didn't show
clicked
up.
on it, it was like, that title is not available. Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
I know it's a sneaky. They're fucking fuckers. Yeah.
That's
Never mind the fact that I have like 500 books in there that I don't actually own. I have to continue to pay like $15 a month just to have access to them.
Mm-hmm.
Such bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious though, what their take is because I know they hate Trump. So I'd be interested to see if they're going to be like, oh yeah, get rid of the USAID, or if they're like, no.
Join the watch together.
Why?
I want to watch the clip.
Why do you want me in the room with you, Adam?
So again, some of this stuff gets some of the.
I say this often, but this might.
Oh my God. The last thing I want.
That's Dave Rubin.
I should be nicer. I should be nicer to Dave Rubin.
Well, no, I know we watched like a longer source of it, and I don't remember if we found out it was out of context or not, or if we're like, nope, confirmed that he's stupid.
I'm not sure. I just
don't
remember it was
remember.
going viral. Everyone was talking about it. That's why there's a Dave Rubin video about
Well,
it.
whatever.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print.
Okay. You're in the, I see you in the watch together, but you're not in there on your account, but that's
No.
fine. Ready? It's not a
Yeah.
long clip.
Their own money, and just watch this. This is absolutely mind-blowing.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
It's so weird because like the same people that will say, you know, money printer go burr, right? Government spending, driving inflation, making everything more expensive, right? Printing money, print. Like as soon as you talk about this in a different context, it's like, what? They don't print money. They can't make money.
Right.
They don't make it. The government doesn't make any. We have a super chat here where it says the government doesn't make any money, right?
Well,
I mean, that's not necessarily fair to the super chatter because maybe they're not saying money printer go burr. But if it's the same person that says money, if it's the same person saying money printer go burr, and then they're saying, well, we don't have a money printer. It's like, what? The real answer is why they sell bonds is because obviously if there's a bunch of money floating around, that's going to drive inflation. If you sell bonds, you're basically incentivizing people to tie their money up in this instrument that they can't readily use to buy goods and services and bid up in prices. That's the purpose of it.
That's the effect of it. I don't know if that was the original intention of it.
Right. That could be true. That definitely could be true.
That is
because
the
it came into existence during the gold standard.
Right. So there could be another reason for it. Well, I don't know, because on one hand, I know what you're saying is true, but I don't kind of like the argument where you say, well, you can't say money printer go burr because the government technically doesn't print the money. It's like, well, they kind of do though, right? They just have to do it through this very roundabout process.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, they don't directly do it, but I mean, is there a time where maybe there is, and this would maybe be the counter to that. Is there a time where essentially the Treasury is like, we need extra money, go make bonds. And then the Fed says, fuck you.
No.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, then essentially it is, they do have control over the printer.
Yeah.
In an indirect way. So, but to
government
be fair,
can spend as much as they want.
Right. To be fair to Jared here, he was talking, it seemed like he was saying he didn't understand what MMT's point was, not that he didn't understand how the money situation works.
Right.
So.
Well, you couldn't explain. I mean, I explained it.
I understand that. But anyway, it is funny because that's a clip of him basically. It's like for like the evil left wing MMT people. And so it was interesting. A bunch of right wing people are saying, "Aha!"
I just don't see how you can work in the high levels of finance like this and not really know anything about it. I guess it's because these positions are like high status positions. There's a bunch of people in high status positions that don't know fucking shit. They're just complete pretenders. They don't know anything about it. They're not interested in it. They're like, look, I got this super job. I'm a fucking Biden economics advisor. What do you know about economics? Nothing. Oh, okay.
Well,
But it pays $750,000 a year.
I mean, I don't know. I'm skeptical. I'd want to see a full clip. I do feel like there's some context cutting.
You think they clipped him?
I think, yeah, I do. That's my sense of it. So
Right. Look,
he could still be I think he's wrong, but I think he understands the process.
many people think that we don't need to sell treasury bonds. That's basically a perk that we're giving to people.
Yeah.
You know, we say you can turn the cash in your bank account into a treasury bond and earn 5% on it. When interest rates are 5%, obviously, if interest rates are 0%, you're not going to earn any money. You might as well keep it in cash. But we could not do that, not offer that service and just force people to keep their money in cash. I guess that's when the private sector would come in and say, you give us your cash. We'll make it worth your while.
Mm-hmm.
Where we at?
Where were we? Brian for $5 says, to be fair, Musk can only recommend cuts. Trump has to approve them. I'm assuming he's talking to people with clearance like Rubio. I guess that's true. I guess that's the question. Is Trump going to sort of pull the brakes on what Elon's doing? I guess we'll find out.
Can't wait.
RBGH fan for $5 says, I bet the information is worth more than the actual cuts. Maybe.
Probably so.
Yeah, maybe. Bob Van Gogh for $5 says, if you don't tear it all down and rebuild, remnants of the dysfunction will remain and grow. I mean, remnants of the dysfunction are going to remain if you just shift things over, which is essentially what they're going to do anyway. I don't know. I don't think it's possible to tear it down and rebuild. I just don't think that's probably possible without causing too many problems, too many widespread problems, and basically destroying all of America's soft power in the world, which would be not great. Lethal Strain for $5 says, Trump is going fraud, waste, and abuse route to bypass Congress. If the interest of the State Department isn't in line with spending, it falls under abuse. Yeah, so, well, it depends, because my understanding is that gives power to sort of limit certain things and to investigate sort of things and to cut certain things. I don't believe it's ever been adjudicated, and no one seems to believe legally that gives you the right to shut down an entire organization like USA that's created by Congress. Though it's going to go to the courts, so we'll find out. Poboxy for €5 says, is it the burning tire mountain of The Simpsons, but with condoms in Gaza? Yes. Yes, it is. Largest P for 24 months. Thanks so much for being 2 years Free Will Seeker. Says, one of the worst crimes against this country was Congress willingly giving away its authority to agencies to avoid responsibility and accountability. True.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So true. That's why we really need to figure out a way to fix that, to incentivize Congress to actually want to have power. That's what's so bizarre. It's so funny because everyone talks about like, oh, everyone's in power to, snake power for themselves, blah, 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 blah. And then we have we have this branch of government, which when the country was founded was supposed to be the most powerful, was Congress, the legislative branch, and they just want to fucking cede their authority to everything. At least recently. Well, I don't think it was that way back in the day, but. Oshie for $10 says, here's your super chat for covering U.S. aid Sitch. I was kind of disappointed and think you're not being nearly critical enough, but thank you anyway. Well, first of all, I'm sorry you're disappointed. Secondly, you sent me this clip that was
a disappointment. Sitch.
I know.
Oh
so Oshie sent me this clip that was like Mike Benz, and Mike Benz is one of these guys. He's one of these Twitter accounts talking about who basically is like, everything the government does is like part of the CIA to promote wokeness and, coup governments. Like, it's all just America bad. Everything's a leftist George Soros operation. Though in the clip now he's saying George Soros is not a big deal. It's all a USA thing. And so I'm watching, I watched the clip and I'm like, okay, I have literally no fucking clue if any of this is true. It would take me like a very long time to dig into it. And I do want to spend the time digging into it. I can't do it in a day, as I said in the message to you, to kind of adjudicate that claim. I have to sub to Mike Benz's Twitter and watch his 6-hour video where he's trying to go through and make this complicated explanation. So, and then I have to go do the research myself to fact check all the claims that he's making. So, but I don't really know that much about Mike Benz beyond that. Okay. Lethal Strain for Jar says, wrong Gaza. Check DM Sitch. Yeah, I saw, it's funny. I saw this accusation. I don't know if it was true. So some people think that maybe Trump and Elon are confused because there's a place that's in, which is in Mozambique called Gaza that apparently we gave a bunch of funding to. And they're like, maybe they saw Gaza funding to Gaza in Mozambique and they thought it meant funding to Gaza like in Israel. Which, if that's the case, that's pretty bad too. So
could be.
It could be just a total misreading of the the country titles and everything. Memes brand for $5 says it seems like El Salvador has offered the U.S. to keep illegal immigrants and criminals in their mega prisons for a small fee. Imagine people's reactions. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I don't really know enough about that to have a pro or anti stance on that at all.
Elon Musk could be a completely different person now because, obviously power has a corrupting influence on people. Money has a corrupting influence on people. I've read 2 books on Elon Musk, and Elon Musk had this super cringy situation with his dad where he has sort of a tortured relationship with his dad. And his dad, he's going to try to repair the relationship with his father. So after he's become fabulously wealthy and somewhat famous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his dad comes to America and he sets his dad up and his family. And his dad has this young wife, this super young wife. And she has a stepdaughter. And it appears to Elon Musk that his dad is courting the stepdaughter. And this is obviously repugnant to Elon Musk. He's like, this is fucking bullshit. He calls his dad out on it and basically sends him away and disowns him, which, I mean, that's the right thing to do, correct? That's you're sensing this person as a really strong moral center, right? Am I wrong about that?
I mean, if that's what's going on, sure.
Well, years later, he's got a child by the stepdaughter, so obviously he was correct.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah. So obviously he's correct.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's difficult for me. If you know anything about Elon Musk, there's tons of situations like this in the book. The first time Elon Musk meets with Trump, the reason, and this is in 2016 when Trump is first elected, Elon Musk wants to do something about climate change. He started all these companies to do something about climate change to that's why he wants to electrify America and get everyone off of fossil fuels. So he's looking to Trump as someone who could help him with this project. And Trump is just not really even there for any of that. And Elon Musk is like, fuck this guy. I have things I want to accomplish, things that are going to make the world tangibly better. Mm-hmm. And so he just basically writes Trump off and doesn't have anything to do with him. So that's morally righteous, right? That's the right thing to do, correct? So look, there's all of these different things in the book that's written by a third party investigating
You're
Trump.
saying he wrote off Trump back in the day?
Yeah, in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
In 2016, Trump basically calls Elon Musk in. I remember this happening, right? Like they have some sort of thing, and Trump just basically wants to use him to political ends, and Elon's like, I'm not going to let this guy just use me. I want something out of it. Like, how are we going to make the world a better place, right? That's like Elon seems monomaniacally focused on that kind of stuff. So just if you know a lot about Elon Musk, it's very hard for me, like when these other things come up, it's very hard for me to let go of the fact that, well, he did the right thing with his fucking dad, right? Like he did the right thing with Trump the first time. So look, and I'll admit, like maybe he's a completely different person now. Maybe he's been completely corrupted. Maybe he's just lying, cheating, and stealing. Like he's done it. He's had the moral center and it just never worked out for him. Now he's like in a completely different mode, right? He's in this American gangster type mode where he's like sold out to evil. Evil is really the best route to accomplish things. But I don't know. Maybe he hasn't. So I think when we're evaluating Elon Musk, a lot of people, look, people in the chat were saying, "Oh, this is where Adam carries water for Elon Musk." I guarantee you the people in the chat saying that do not know the situation about his dad, right? They don't know the situation that he gave Trump the middle finger in 2016. They don't know any of the situation. Like they don't know all of the details around his various business operations where he did the right thing. He did the morally right thing. There's tons of examples of that in the book that make me think I should give this guy a bit of grace, a bit of charity, because he doesn't have a track record of doing the morally repugnant thing. But none of those things come into play when we have these conversations because it's like, what has Elon Musk done lately?
Sure,
So I
sure.
just want to get that out there because, look, I think there's a lot of stuff. I welcome you. Read the Walter Isaacson's book. It's crazy. Like in a lot of the interactions that Elon Musk had, remember the guy, the trust and safety guy at Twitter when Elon Musk was first talking about hiring Twitter, the guy that did his thesis on, look, it turned out the guy was a complete wokester, right? Elon Musk even treated that guy fairly.
Wait, no, he didn't. What are you talking about? Didn't he dox that guy like wrongly?
In the book, he treats the guy completely fairly. So
I'm just saying, I don't remember if it was Elon or someone else. I could have swore somebody was working at Twitter. I don't know if it's the same guy you're talking about. And they were like accusing him of being a groomer wrongly.
Yes, that's the exact same guy. Yes,
yeah, and then
exactly.
Elon like kind of blew up the accusation, and then like all these people were attacking him wrongly for years.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. I don't feel like.
Okay. Well, let's get the actual details of the situation before we just
because I don't remember. This is my right. This is my sense of Elon, and I defended Elon in terms of I was very happy that he was calling out saying we need to expel the racist.
You defended him on the Nazi thing. Look, I never defended him on the Nazi thing.
I defended him on the Nazi thing, right?
Because I thought he might be trolling. So
right, but I don't know. I'm not coming up here and saying Elon is, fucking Hitler 2.0 or evil or whatever, like some of these people are saying. To me, my sense of Elon, just based on what I see on his interactions on X, is like people are complicated and not everyone's all one direction. I'm sure even Hitler did, was very nice to his family.
Oh, don't say that, right? Sitch. Come on.
No,
Hitler's
but I'm just saying,
obviously...
like, I understand that there's definitely validity to saying, okay, like if we're trying to adjudicate someone's behavior, we should look at the past to kind of draw from that, right? That definitely makes sense. But I'm just saying, based on what I see, based on what he's saying on Twitter, I see either a complete cynical attempt to galvanize the right in a direction for completely cynical purposes, or just a complete irresponsibility towards kind of jumping off the handle and not fact checking and just blowing up things that get people in trouble, get people attacked, wrongly promote ideas without doing any due diligence to fact check. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's completely cynical from Elon's perspective. I don't know if he's just being highly reckless in what he's doing, or some combination of the two things.
Yeah.
And then
my only point in bringing this up
Right.
is that there are lots of data points that are in Elon Musk's favor
Yes, that's true.
that nobody is aware of. So it's very easy when all you see are the bad data points to say this person's fucking horrible.
That is correct.
Right?
That is
That's
correct.
the only reason why I'm bringing it up.
Right.
So,
Okay, that's fair. But have you considered that
Mhm.
Elon lied about being good at a video game?
look, that's a complete look. I don't
know, I'm
deny that
just-
there are
I'm just
tons
teasing.
of
I'm
data
just
points
teasing.
against him, but
I know. I'm just teasing.
yeah.
Okay. Why is everyone speaking of Hitler? I saw James Lindsay and Constantine, all these other people, they were tweeting out Hitler was bad, and I'd have no clue what this is even. What is this in reference to? Was there someone saying Hitler wasn't bad? Like,
I saw something on,
I don't know what they're talking about.
maybe it was in the chat earlier, but someone was talking about the Tucker Carlson thing.
Oh, is it a Tucker thing?
I don't know. They said Tucker Carlson said that Putin won World War II or the Russians won World War II or something. I don't know. It was weird. Or maybe the Nazis won World War II. I don't know.
Right. Two Rivers for 32 months says, oh, I skipped one. I'll come back to it. Thank you, America, for our DI stage show in Ireland. We really need that in one of the most woke countries in Europe. 70,000. Well spent. You're welcome. Meme spam for $5 says, it seems like El Salvador has offered the U.S. to keep illegal. Oh, I read that one. Brian for $5 says, Democrats were wrong, but their whole motto under Obama was demographics is destiny when they thought their path to victory was imagined. So, again, the problem is that the facts go against that philosophy. I understand people were talking, but I understand a lot of people on the left were doing fucking cartwheels saying, aha, we're going to win because demographics are shifting. But as I said, you look at the behavior of Obama, even if you look at the behavior of Biden, if there was really this secret plot by Democrats to bring in all the illegals, why was Obama deporting people in record numbers? Why was Biden keeping the border closed under COVID for as long as he possibly can? It doesn't really make sense. So.
Yeah.
James Lee put a video last night titled Never Again Is Now. Oh, okay. Option for $10 says Democrats let millions of people in the country while promising and attempting to gain them citizenship. Is it the accidental dictator's handbook? Aren't Dems allowing illegals to vote in local races? So I don't know. I feel like I've already just said one. I don't want to repeat myself again. So we've had this conversation like 20 billion times by now about the whole illegals thing. Ace for $10 says Hogg is a good choice for vice chair. He called out the Dems' lack of care for young men and the need for good faith conversation with the other side, so the dismissive towards him is unjust. Ace, I have literally no fucking clue what you're talking about. You're gonna have to send me videos of this because every single video I've seen of David Hogg, unless he's changed, every single video I've seen of David Hogg, which maybe I'm trapped in a right-wing bubble here, is just been him saying completely unhinged shit and having no charity towards the right. So I'm not sure how. I'm not sure. I haven't seen those good showings of Hogg there. What is this? Someone just sent me some article here. Someone just sent me an article that says Mike Benz used to be an alt-right person. What? Is that true? In interviews with white nationalists, Mike Benz used to be known as a guy named Frame Game who blamed Jews for controlling the media. Is this true? I've never even heard of this in my life. Is this true or is this an accusation?
So I looked up and there's nothing on. Yul Roth is a guy. There's nothing on Elon Musk doxing Yul Roth. So I do remember that they had a contentious back and forth on Twitter, but I think I'm not sure.
I don't think
doxed
you're
him.
right. I don't think he doxed him. I think what happened was someone, they found that.
Yeah, they found his thesis.
The
was
thesis,
like super
and then he like
SJW or
he like
fucking,
retweeted it or something.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And said
But he
like
didn't-
ew, gross or whatever.
He
And I
didn't
was like,
dox
"Ah."
the dude.
Yeah, he didn't.
And then
dox
he
him. That's
and then
correct.
look, he ended up even working with him. And
Right.
Yul Roth said that Yul Roth himself in the book says that Elon Musk ultimately treated him fairly, that they just had political differences.
Right.
Yeah. So I just look. I want to look it out there. You made a claim that he doxed him. I don't think that's fair.
I said I
don't think that
misremembered.
claim
He
should be
didn't
up.
dox him. He retweeted.
Well, people
that
in the
thing.
chat were saying
Yes.
he did dox him. So
Okay.
I just look, we should be accurate about this, right?
Mike Benz is Jewish. Why? So what is this article about? Is this just a lie?
Everyone's like, oh my God, Adam, you're carrying water for Elon Musk. Let's all pretend he doxed this dude.
Frame Game supposedly said if you were to remove Jewish influence on the West, white people would not face the threat of white genocide that they currently do. This
Look at this
person,
sword. Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
this person posted a video and it showed in his Facebook that it appeared to be Mike Benz's account. Okay, but was it confirmed or
Oh,
is it just
shit.
like theory crafting here?
Look at this. Sword and Scale is way up on his Bitcoin. You can tell. Buy Bitcoin, suckers. He gave
Yeah,
us two $50 super chats.
There was some accusation. I don't know the legitimacy. There's some accusation that like when I don't think this is the case, but people were accusing Trump because like when they first started the tariffs, I think Bitcoin like it did something, it like took a hit and then it like went back up, or I don't know, somehow Trump's Bitcoin made a bunch of money. So people were like accusing him of doing this just for personal finance reasons, which I'm skeptical of, but obviously that's a really bad conflict of interest if it exists.
Sword and Scale has a really good podcast too. You guys should check it out. But look, Bitcoin looks like Bitcoin is down for the day, down 5%. Oh, that's nothing. Down 7% over the last 5 days. It's under 100K. So
Hours after publication, Mike Benz posted a lengthy statement confirming he was Frame Game, but said it was a covert attempt to combat anti-Semitism. The account in question was a project by Jews to get people who hate Jews to stop hating Jews, he wrote.
I'll be right back.
That sounds really confusing to me. Well, I mean, I'm not going to automatically dismiss him because of this, but that's a very bizarre situation. So, Kyle for 1 month says, have either of you listened to Mike Ben? Oh, there you go. Mike Benz on Joe Rogan. He discussed some of the nefarious uses of funds for U.S. aid to censor America through NGOs. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to part of it. So that's the thing I wanted to look into. And then someone just sent me this article just now. But I still want to look into the claims that he's making. So, Colt Hammer for $10 says, I know this is late. In my opinion, Hassan thinks he's correct and he's terrified of his audience. This type of neo-Marxism convinces people that they have seen the light and now they know the truth. Maybe. It is interesting to see. I believe Hassan is like challenging Ethan to a debate. So I really hope. Yeah, I don't know if Ethan's going to do it. I hope he picks up the mantle. He's framing it like he wants to challenge him to debate on. He's like, talk to me or Sam Cedar about Gaza. And it's so stupid because like the conversation is not about Gaza. It's about why are you supporting fucking terrorism, you retard. Like you and Ethan's position on Gaza are pretty close. So.
Right.
Quincy.
Good content.
Quincy McBurger King for $10 says context for Hobo. Dan Richards debunking was there with Jimmy Corset, Bright Insight to talk about their problems with archaeology. Glad Joe brought that up during a podcast. That was pretty unrelated. Oh. I think I actually have seen that guy before. It was pretty interesting. If he's been on Joe Rogan, if that's what I'm thinking of. Dustin the Win for $5 says thoughts on the U.S. Sovereign Wealth Fund. I'm in favor of it.
Great idea.
Yeah.
We should do it.
100% in favor of it. Yeah. That would be, I mean, that's part of, people have suggested that in terms of MMT.
Mark Blythe.
I mean, not MMT, UBI alternatives.
Yeah. Mark Blythe.
Mark Blythe, yeah, who I like a lot. Suggested that. Boof Ski McKee for $10 says, hey, if we're doing economics today, any chance we could watch a bit of today's government crypto and AI czar announcement? It was pretty informative and will become more important as the subject.
We can watch it tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, we can watch it tomorrow. Mr. Ubercross, thanks so much for $10. Says the NFL is removing end racism from the end zones in the Super Bowl. Took a lot of football games, but they finally ended racism. Great news.
Nice. Finally, it's over.
Look at that sword scale for $100. Buy Bitcoin, suckers. Yeah, well, listen, I'm glad you're doing good. I'm glad your Bitcoin's doing well.
Way up.
Okay.
Bitcoin was languishing at $60,000 now.
Right.
Boom.
Oxy for $5 says, oh no, I was just interested in the one Soros claim. Once Ben started talking about the CIA, I turned it off. Sorry, I put you through that. Well, now you tell me. I'm less interested in the Soros claim. I was more interested in this claim of like Is it true that everything the USA does is the evil CIA deep state? That's what I'm more interested about than the George Soros stuff. Asset Games for $20. Thanks so much. Says Elon was correct. Treasury bonds do compete with private lending and equity investments as a vehicle. The bond purchasers would otherwise be investing their money in market private individuals. Bonds set an rate of investment or rate of interest floor. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Again,
The treasury bonds set the
right.
floor. Yes.
So again, that's not what Elon said. As I even said myself, I think 3 times now, I could be charitable and say maybe that's what he meant to say in an autistic way. So, but that's not what he said. But it's possible it's what he meant. So,
right. Well, and it makes sense because that would drive up interest rates for the private bonds. Obviously, you got to have the interest rate be more competitive than the Fed.
Right.
To get the money.
Hulsnay for $2 says, I think it's hilarious. So if we actually sent $50 million to Gaza, it would be proportionate to how fucked they are. Yeah. Right. Arithmetic for GR says, Sitch, what side of American politics is constantly talking about amnesty and pathway to citizenship programs for illegals? You can't possibly believe that expanding the Democratic voter base isn't part of the equation. I think extending, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think that'd be part of it, even though wasn't it Reagan that offered like the largest amnesty in this country's history?
He was trying to win back all those voters.
Yeah, wasn't it Ronald Reagan? Party. So first of all, I don't know, if I even agree with that. But again, it's hard to tell because so much of it is rooted in the racism angle element of it, and that seems to be such a key thing. I do think that there are a lot of Democrats out there who think that, if they grant people, especially if the Democrats grant people amnesty, they'll vote blue. I would definitely think that that's definitely true. I just think this is very overly simplistic thought process about this conspiracy where all the Democrats are working together to bring in the illegals to vote. And it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense. Why was Obama deporting people? Why was Joe Biden keeping the border locked down for as long as he could? Doesn't really make sense. If that's the goal, by the way, if that's the goal to do those actions, that doesn't make any sense. Holton for 2 hours says, Sitch, have you considered that Obama deported all those illegals due to being rapidly racist against brown people? Let's also not forget that he's the drone striker in chief as well. You're correct. I hadn't really thought about that because of my own racist, because I was like, oh, Obama's like half black. So, but you're right.
That means he's half white.
Yeah.
He's one of us, guys.
There you go. He's one of us. Maybe Obama was just a huge fucking racist and he just hates the Hispanic population. That's very possible. I hadn't considered that. That is very, very possible. So I have to put that in the equation. Raymond for $2 says the Obama deporter in chief thing is kind of red herring. Deportations of criminals and new border crossings increased at the time of Obama and then due to inheriting a strengthened Bush DHS, but decreased over time. Yeah, no, I understand that. But again, if it decreased over time, not because of Obama's actions, but because of sanctuary states and the fact that, if there's a secret plot to do this, you would think Obama would enter into office and immediately try to dismantle the programs, but he didn't do any of that action. So as we can see, the president can definitely come in and dismantle lots of programs. I mean, even with Biden.
You think Obama believes that illegal labor suppresses wages?
I think everyone believes that.
Okay, maybe that's why he deported everyone.
Well, yeah, but that used to be the Democrat argument for a while until very recently, when the whole woke stuff kind of blew up. So, but I mean, again,
that's
same thing with
why
Biden.
He did deport all those people. He was like, this will be good for the working class coalition.
I imagine. Yeah,
and he's like, no one can call me racist because I'm black.
He's got the protection idol. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes. That's why Reagan come out and do the amnesty thing. Because it's like, look, we're tough on immigration, so I don't have to worry about my reputation being trashed by doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Obama's like, everyone knows I love black people. That's why this is not going to trash my reputation when I deport all these brown people.
Right.
It's weird that way, isn't it? You've got reputational protection.
Also, Obama curtailed the employer illegal labor enforcement and focused more narrowly on border crossings. allowing illegals already in the country to skate, couple that with pushes for amnesty, and I become skeptical. Well, I don't know if that's true, but I'll look into it.
Every single day we're like, okay, we're going to end in 2 hours.
I know, and then we
Guaranteed
never do.
it's going to be this time.
Blah blah blah.
I look
Everyone's just
down and
talking,
it's
right?
like 3
I know.
hours and 15
I
minutes.
know. Well, listen,
We're
I was
terrible
trying to
at
skip.
this.
I was trying to skip the video of
I know. I brought up the
Jared
video.
guy. You
I
brought
did
it up. I was like,
my-
okay, listen.
I
guess
did
we'll-
my Elon Musk defense. Yeah, look, I'm throwing all kinds of shit in here. Look,
Mhm.
I don't blame you. It's just as much my fault. It's just, for me, it's comical. Every single day, Sitch and I go, okay, 2 hours. That's it. We're going to hit our mark. How does the Young Turks do it? They do the story in like 15 minutes. It's like when Joe Rogan was up saying, that's not enough time. I was thinking, you're damn right.
Right.
3 to 7 hours. That's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Anyway, are we done? All right. This
done.
was a great show. Be sure, look, if you bought the comic, thank you so much. Make sure that your address is correct on Indiegogo. I'm going to mail these comics out, and the comic is finally going to be done. So you guys are going to get your comic soon. You got anything else to say, or
See you tomorrow.
we'll see you tomorrow? Take care, everyone.
Nice. I'm trying to end early. You keep bringing
I
up new
know.
topics.
Look,
Keep gabbing.
guys,